Sequel to the scariest movie or scariest monsters in America? Question mark.
True.
Tubi Original presents Welcome to I Hope You Suffer.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, same. Jerks.
Listen, I don't know how long we have to sing Tubi's praises for them to get on it.
We were on board so fucking early on Tubi, and I'm
Seriously.
still mad that they've never acknowledged us or sent me a free movie projector.
Or ask me to be on Scariest Monsters in America and or the world and or Scariest Places in America and or the world.
Look, I'm saying, like, Tubi, make us, like, the fucking Shudder already did it. You could do it too. Make us scariest movie moments or some shit. Put us in it.
We'll be there.
We talk about the dude's chair swing in the lock-in. I'm sure it's on that list.
Definitely. I think it's the scene where that girl turns around and there's like randomly a ghost devil child behind her for no reason. I think that should be on there.
Yeah. Just let us make it. Give me the money. We'll make it.
That scene where that girl in Last Vampire on Earth is holding the gun. She's not scared, you know? Scary.
This is episode 278 of I Hope You Suffer. I'm Nathan.
I'm Katie.
Kid's not here. He is destroying Texas from his team winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, good for you.
He's celebrating. So this week we watched two kind of bad, kind of fun documentaries about cryptid, quote unquote, creatures. And then Katie collected some stories.
Yeah.
Which is the real reason Katie's here.
Literally the only reason. I'm literally so excited. Cannot contain my excitement. Yeah, so I talked about this kind of on the last episode, that when we were traveling, we watched the Tubi original documentary, Scariest Places in America and Scariest Places in the World. And then Nathan, we were trying to find just like something, a stupid documentary to just kind of like talk about, like a spooky one or whatever. After we did Haunting in Amarillo, which is that badge foot Bible, whatever the fuck. And we thought that was going to be a documentary, and it wasn't. So here we are with also Tubi original Scariest Monsters in America and then Scariest Monsters in the World. I don't even remember which one you originally said we should do. They're essentially...
I think I said America, because I said America because I accidentally watched World.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh, right. Wait, this is the wrong one. So if we want to do both of them, we can't.
and they're like an hour and a half. They're like whatever. It's just to throw on or whatever. And essentially like what these... I don't know if they have any more besides Scariest Places and Scariest Monsters. But they're essentially like countdown listicles. So it's like the top 10, whatever. And I kind of expressed my opinion on the series like when I was talking about Scariest Places. They're not, some of the topics that they go over are very in-depth, and some of them are basically just like, this girl died, it's scary. And it's like, the people who are on it are like not necessarily experts. It's just like podcast people. There are some people who have PhDs, which I think is so cool. In this Monsters one, there's like some people with like folklore degrees and like all that stuff, which is very cool. But mostly it's like content creator, podcast person, and researcher. Like I need to know more about that. I feel like anyone could be a researcher. So, but so what I'm trying to say is like, believe in paranormal or supernatural stuff all you want, because like there's a line between like somebody that's an expert in something that maybe isn't real. Do you know what I mean? Like I get that. But the thing that I guess I do kind of like about this is that it's like kind of just people who are into it telling you about it, which to me I think gives it a little bit of like fun credibility versus like somebody that's like, I have a PhD in folklore and the kelpie is definitely real. Like, you know what I mean? So like these are kind of just like, again, if you're wanting to know more about cryptids, because that's mostly what this is, there's a few on here that I argue with is considered a monster, but that's neither here nor there. If you're trying to just like be like, I like Mothman, I know Bigfoot, like what are some other ones? There are some like sort of obscure ones on here. Like if you're just wanting to get a listicle of like things to look further into, I think that this is totally fun. And again, I just was like crocheting. I just like had this on in the background, you know?
Yeah, I would say they're like, these, for me, they're not good per se, but I also didn't have a bad time watching them.
Yeah.
It's just like the way, like, I think they're fun, but they're just not made great, I guess. Like, cause like, especially when you like, I think it was in the world one, a bunch of the fucking, like, anytime they would show like interstitials or like of creepy CGI monster images, like Pennywise would pop up a bunch, and I was like, why the fuck is Pennywise on this?
Yeah.
And so like it, like anytime somebody was like talking about it that wasn't the narrator, or like they would show what, you know, quote unquote real footage, I was like, okay, I like this. But anytime it was like the sort of interstitial or like CGI shit, I was like, blech.
Yeah, because they did this thing that was like a weird. I think that I need you to pick one. They did this thing where it's like they would show illustrated. Like I liked some of the ones that are like old like native like folklore or whatever. They would show like older like depictions of them. I need you to pick like only drawings, only depictions of them in that way. But then they would do this thing where like randomly there would be like somebody running from like a CGI werewolf, and I'm like, ew, why are you doing this? Or and like anytime they had like a modern real person like running in a field, like it just was like very strange. Then Scariest Monsters in America starts with like some guy wearing a flag, and they're saying like our country 'tis of thee or some shit, and I was like, whoa, what is going on here? Calm down.
My biggest problem is I don't like that I now live in a world where like I can watch a documentary about cryptids and it'll be like, viral TikTok video from 2023 showed this footage that's supposedly of La Llorona, and I was like, god damn it, why we gotta have fucking TikTok videos? And just say viral video or some shit. Just,
I will say there was a lot of TikTok footage.
yeah, I think the world one especially, and I was like, fine, you could say this is TikTok footage, but I saw this video a decade ago of the Chupacabra. It's not fucking TikTok footage.
Right.
You just got it off TikTok, I'm guessing, instead of just using YouTube.
There were a few where they showed.
We're never getting invited by Tubi onto anything.
I know. Listen, Tubi, we believe in you and we can fix you, okay? Just give us the relationship we're looking for. There were a few, like specifically the Chupacabra one, where they did show footage from like the early 2000s or like the late 90s or something, and it was like very obviously like a shitty local news thing or whatever, which I thought was cool. So like they did have some cool info, but what I want to know is I needed more information about like how they decided this countdown, because I'm going to tell you. So this is what I did.
The America one, I've got a lot of questions about how number one is the most terrifying on this list.
I do too. So I wrote down their listicle. So let's just like talk about it. I'm going to tell you immediately I had issues because we have Scariest Places in America. This is from 2022. Scariest Monsters in America. Yeah. This is the first one that they did. And immediately, one of the things that I am irrationally terrified of, they have it number 9, and I'm like, this is going to be an issue for me. So I'm going to start with 10. And so it's just 10. This is what they think are the scariest monsters in America. At number 10, they have specific. I also do have an issue with them. Like, I don't understand why they felt they needed to do the states, because like they have number 10 Chupacabra, Texas.
So
And
yeah,
like,
Caitlin came home. I think I was in the middle of watching, or like give take the middle watching the America one, and it got to La Llorona, and I was like, La Llorona is not an American thing. This is not America. This is Mexico. Yeah. But they're saying it's like Texas or some shit, and I was like, no, this is bullshit.
Yeah. So and there's a discrepancy because they do the same thing that they did in Scariest Places, where some of them are dupes, and one of the dupes they have in the world, and they listed like a different area, and
they gave it like a different backstory, which like I get, because like I'm sure it's got a different backstory in,
sure,
the other country that it came from and stuff. But I was like, okay, come on, you easily could have found another creature that isn't a fucking double up.
Right. So, and in the Scariest Places, there were like a lot of dupes. And again, so that's why I want to know. I need more information about like how they decided they ranked the scariness, because when we get to the world, I also have some issues with it. So number 10, we have Chupacabra from Texas. Chupacabra, I feel like, is one of the very first like cryptids that I remember hearing about when I was young, because it was like focused on the news, and it's like basically just this like scrawny looking animal thing that like sucks the blood out. It's like a vampire dog, sort of. And
I've seen a vampire dog with Norm Macdonald as the voice of vampire dog. It's not scary.
This, to me, I don't find this scary specifically because, like, the Chupacabra, I do like as a cryptid. I think he's cool. He's not interested in people. Like, when have you ever heard of a Chupacabra attack on a person? It's always livestock. They're just trying to live their life. They're like a weird animal. Okay, in this one too, they had a video of somebody recording the Chupacabra from their car, and it's like running in front of their car, and I'm like, that's very obviously like a pit bull. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I've seen that footage before, and like I do like the one guy that's just like, they've done like autopsies or whatever on a bunch of these ones that people found and said it's Chupacabra, and it just turned out to be a dog with like mange or rabies or some shit. Yeah. And I'm like, yes, obviously.
So this one, I think is pretty like whatever. Number 9, excuse me, the black-eyed children or black-eyed kids.
Yeah, get them out of here.
They
should be number 2 at least.
I am so scared of them. I am so scared of the possibility, like the idea of this literally gives me the chills and the heebie. I'm like so scared. Also, they list them as being in Vermont. I've never specifically heard that they're from Vermont, but go off, it's fine.
I think the only thing I've ever listened to about them was maybe the And That's Why We Drink episode. And I was just like, nope, don't need to hear about these people anymore.
That one sticks out in my mind. I was actually recently talking to my brother-in-law. Like, anybody who has never heard of them, I'm just going to call them the BEK. Because for me, for some reason, this one, these feel like ones that if you talk about them, you summon them. And I don't want to have anything to do with it. And essentially what they are children, literally with black eyes. But we don't really know what they are. Some people think they're aliens. Some people think that they're... By the way, I'm just going to talk this entire episode. I'm just going to talk as if I totally believe any of this stuff is real. Like, it's just let's just do it. Some people think they're demons. I don't know what they are, but the characteristic of them is that they'll show up like really frequently. They will show up. They can show up anywhere, but they'll show up like at your front door. They'll knock and they'll say that they need help. They won't look up at you, obviously, because their eyes are fucking black, and they're trying to gain entry into where you are. And one of the things that is like characteristic of them is that they will talk to you, but like in a way that they don't fully understand language. So they'll ask you for really weird stuff. Like a lot of like in I think in the Are You or That's Why We Drink, they basically one of the people said that they like knocked on the door and asked to use their gramophone or something like that. And it's like the 2000s and they're like, can we use your gramophone? Which like nobody has a gramophone. Or they'll be like, oh, can we borrow some ketchup for our apples? And just like weird shit like that. And that like uncanny valley talking to me really freaks me out. Okay. And there's a lot of stories about how if you like the one that they told on the episode is one that is like the common one where this woman, it's like an older woman, the kids knock on her door and say like, hey, we need help, like, can we come in? And the girl who was like talking about the story was like, and they're children, of course you're gonna let them in. And I was like, no. Even if I didn't think that they were black-eyed children, like I wouldn't let them in. But she lets them in and they're basically like really strange. And essentially what happens is as soon as they leave, her and her husband like get cancer and die. And there's a lot of stories about how people contract cancer after having encounters with the black-eyed children, which to me is so scary because like that's almost one of the scariest things that can happen to you, like just as a person. So the fact that just like and I think that's why some people think that they're like extraterrestrial, because it's like you're coming into contact with like foreign material and it's like basically damaging your body or whatever. But I also heard this story that I will never get out of my mind. That was a black-eyed kid story where this man, I don't know, he was like maybe in his 40s, and I can't remember like if they came to his front door, like what the situation is, but essentially what happens is he lets them in, and then so he has like a wife, he's had a life, he's like in his his like middle age, whatever. Not that 40s is middle age, but you know what I mean. And he wakes up the next day and he is 10 years old again. And he remembers everything that has happened in his life. Like he remembers being whatever age he was with his family and like the way that his life was. And he has that like consciousness, but he's 10. And so he has to relive his entire life, re-meet the woman who's like going to become his wife and all of this stuff. And then I think he eventually, like once he gets to the age that he was when he had the encounter, he develops cancer. And I don't know why, but to me that story is like so scary. Not just to mention like physically the way they look, but I don't know. I'm saying Tubi number 9. Are you kidding me? After like, I don't think so.
I mean, this one, I guess that it's already wrong because Chupacabra was like 10, but I was gonna say it almost is like most like ranked by like how well known they are, but Chupacabra would be higher up on the list. Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I don't know. It's a flawed list from like the get-go.
Definitely. Because number 8 we have the Oklahoma octopus.
I had not heard of this, and I was way on board.
So this is like essentially just a quote-unquote cryptid. It's an octopus. And the reason that they're saying it's strange or that it could be considered a cryptid is because it resides in this lake in Oklahoma. It is the size of a horse, which like, okay, octopus are big. They can be big, you know? And it lives in a freshwater lake, and basically it's just like responsible for drownings. Like a lot of people have died in this lake. And to me, on the surface, yeah, sure, it's scary because it has to do with water. People are drowning. Don't go in the water. Everybody knows me and your stance on water. Just don't go in the water. This to me is not, I wouldn't consider a cryptid because like it's a known animal, and like I get it's fresh water and like normally octopus aren't, but we haven't discovered almost anything that is alive in the water. You know what I mean? So like the fact that
so I guess because I watched this one second, I had less of a problem with it because I have some real problems with the list in the world one.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that most of them are like horror movie things as opposed to
Sure.
like I guess there's like real world like ideas for them, but it's like, it might as well have just been like creature from the Black Lagoon and shit.
Right.
But
Yeah,
like
sure. Yeah.
so like this I was like, I don't know, whatever. But like I do like I've watched every episode of like Destination Truth where they've gone like hunting for these creatures, and like I had never heard of this one and was just kind of like, I don't know, fine, an octopus. Like, yes, that I would not like to come across a octopus that's like bigger
Sure.
than me in the world, but like there's more like cryptid-ish creatures in America that you could have picked from, that you didn't need to like put just a giant octopus and then
octopus.
two creatures that aren't from America.
Yeah, and I guess like maybe my understanding of the word monster is like not the same as them, because like a monster and a cryptid are like technically not really the same thing, I guess. And the only thing I don't consider like a huge octopus a cryptid. Is it a monster? No, it's literally just living its life, right? Like it's a fucking octopus. I did think it was interesting that they put in again that there was like stories going back from like the native people to the land of like it's been there the whole time. So like could it have survived this whole time if they're saying that it's just one? I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one.
Side note, have you watched Celebrity Exorcism on Tubi?
No? What is that?
I don't know. It's the same production company as these, and it just came up. But
I might.
the middle child on Full House is on it.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Wait, is it like is it a reality show?
It's a movie of some kind, but I think
okay.
it's like I think it's like reality movie or whatever. It's like real life, not like maybe scripted, but not like a
Right.
movie.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. I'll check that out.
I just happened to click on the thing because they did one of the Amityville documentaries, but then it's like it seems like most of their stuff is like there's Suburban Nightmare, the Chris Watts story, which is just some true crime
Oh
documentary,
yeah,
and then
I've seen that.
Brittany Murphy, Gone Before Her Time, and shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to look into it. Okay, so number 7, we have the Louisiana Rougarou. Nobody in this show pronounces Rougarou the same.
I mean, I feel like you can't pronounce it properly unless you're like,
You have that Cajun accent.
yeah.
Rougarou there's like one Cajun person on here that says that, and this is like from Louisiana. This one I do understand. It is quintessentially from this area. We watched a documentary about this, so I'm not going to go super in because we talked about it. But a Rougarou is essentially
it's a werewolf.
It's a werewolf, but it's somebody. It's different in that the person transforms into a werewolf every night, and during the day they're normal. It's not a cyclical thing. And it's also something that you can get passed down and that you could pass to somebody else and get rid of it. So great. Number 6, shockingly, is the New Jersey from the Pine Barrens, the Jersey Devil.
Yeah, it's Lex. It's my cat Lex. That's what I always say.
Jersey Devil, I think, deserves to be there because if I saw him, I would be pretty scared. He seems scary.
I don't know. He wears like a little suit jacket from pictures I've seen of him. He seems like he's probably just
a top hat,
yeah, just
a monocle. He's a gent.
Have a time.
Yeah. I think I definitely expect it. I think that the Jersey Devil, unless you're somebody that's into cryptids, I think is not super common. Like, if you're just like a normie walking on the street, I think the odds of you having heard of like Bigfoot and Mothman, those are like the two biggies I feel like that people know about. The Jersey Devil, I think like maybe not as much unless you're from the area, but I think he's pretty cool. I think he deserves to be on the list. Like I said, I think
I mean, like, I don't. It's just, again, like, I think the scariest part is the thing that I get stuck on is I'm like, and I guess maybe it's just because it's like it's me, but I'm like, I don't know, I'm not really scared of
yeah.
these, and it should just be like, I don't know, it should like literally could have just been like top monsters in America or some shit. I don't know
I'm assuming they picked Scariest
because
as kind of
yeah.
like a novelty just to like get people in or whatever. But I think I don't know if I think that a lot like the idea of the Jersey Devil to me freaks me out because he stands up like on his hind legs, which to me would be scary if I saw. I don't know. He is pretty metal. I do like him. He's cool. I like him.
He's got a hockey team named after him. It can't be that scary.
That's true. I
Also,
think
every sports team should be named after their like local cryptid.
yeah, definitely. There was actually, I know you don't listen to it anymore, but there was an episode like kind of recently of And That's Why We Drink because obviously M is like obsessed with like local like teams, but basically teams. And then they were saying like, yeah, definitely they should all be, and they were like going through all of them, and it was like very cute. And I'm like, absolutely, we need to be doing that.
Like every
what are you
state
doing?
has some sort of like a creature like this. Eventually you'd get into some crossover because a shit ton of them are just like Bigfoots, but like, I don't know. You could like they could figure it out.
Let me find out what northern Florida cryptid is.
I think it's like it's like skunk ape or some shit probably.
Which is Bigfoot. Florida cryptids you might have heard about. No, I've never heard of hog con.
Yeah,
Kong.
Ohio is just Bigfoot apparently.
The Florida sea devil, mega alligator, like
whoa, who's this frogman?
The Loveland swamp frogman or whatever.
Oh, maybe. Let's see. Oh yeah, Loveland, Ohio.
This
guy's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
like him.
skunk ape. Well, gross. Okay, number 5 is one that I disagree with.
This frogman is scarier than almost everything on this list.
And they do this thing too where like they say, here's a few that didn't make the cut.
Did they do that in the America one, or is that just
Yes.
in the world? I don't know if
they did it.
I may
They
have
did it
missed
in both.
They
did it in both, but the frogman's not listed at all. And I'm like, I feel like.
Did you write down like the ones they did and
no?
I remember that being they do it like every 3 or so in the world one, and I missed it whenever they did it in the America one apparently because they do that giant like sandworm thing. In the world one, and I was like the CGI animation for it made me laugh so hard because it's like it's not even like a dune style worm. It's literally just like a worm in the desert.
Yeah,
it's got like no mouth or face or anything like that.
It's the Mongolian death worm. That sounds pretty scary to me.
Yeah, if I saw a giant worm anywhere, I would lose it.
Yeah. Okay.
Was it number 5?
Yeah. And you know what? I don't think that they, in either of them, mention Nessie at all. And I feel like Nessie is like quintessential.
Yeah, but Nessie's not necessarily like scary. Because I feel like I'm sure there probably are, but you don't tend to hear stories of like Nessie attacking people. It's just kind of like
fair.
out
That's
there.
Fair. So, okay, this is why. Okay, that brings me back around. Number 5 comes from Tennessee, and it is the Bell Witch. I have a lot of issues with this because number 1, the Bell Witch is not a monster. I would say she's more of, well, some people had said she was like a shapeshifter, but she's more of like a paranormal entity, which I guess a ghost could be a monster. Again, when I went into this list, I'm thinking cryptids, not ghosts, which is why also La Llorona does not match for me. But the Bell Witch was essentially just like, it is a really, really popular haunting story. One of the guys who is like a direct descendant from the family was in this documentary. He's in a ton of stuff. They might have done like a Ghost Adventures episode where they like went to the farmhouse and he's in it. Like, he's getting all the publicity, and I love that for him. But essentially, it was basically just like this family, and it's like one of the most early documented sources of hauntings. But it was like focused specifically on this one family, and like the idea of like the Bell Witch as being like she could like transform into different things, and she was like tormenting this one family. To me, like, sure, that would be scary if it was happening to you, but the fact that like it was targeting only this one family, to me, makes me feel like she should not be on this list. But whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 4, we have your boy Mothman from West Virginia.
Okay, so I'm looking at a list on Wikipedia of just like kind of well-known cryptids, and immediately whatever the Dover Demon is from Dover, Massachusetts, already scarier than like
one of
2
the
or
ones...
3 of the things on this list that like we've talked about shouldn't be on the list.
Yeah. You know what? One of the ones that didn't make the list, it was the Demon of Bray Road, which I feel like almost nobody's heard of.
Yeah.
So, like, what?
Lizard Man of, like, Scape or Swamp.
Lizard Man.
South
Lizard
Carolina.
Man might have been on there, too.
Michigan Dog Man.
Yeah, the Dog Man. Uh-huh.
There's, like, a bunch on here that, like, I, like, could have easily been on here instead of these, like, you know, the Bell Witch and shit that's like not necessarily a monster, more than like a myth kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're gonna say it a bunch of times, but it's just like some of this is just not just weird picks.
Yeah, very weird. So we've got Mothman.
Oh yeah, Mothman.
Number 4 is Mothman.
Mothman fucking.
Yeah, I think we all know I spent a lot of time in West Virginia as a child. I was probably like 2 hours from Point Pleasant, where Mothman is supposedly was sighted for the first times and whatever, where like there was the thing that I think is like really interesting. There's a lot of like Mothman has become in recent years like such a huge part of pop culture. And he's really been kind of like, what's that term? Not yassified. He's been like girly popped, right? So like there's books now there's literally a book called like I Want to Marry Mothman, and there's like cute little like there's just like so much like cute culture around Mothman now that I feel like he's lost, I think, some of his scariness.
Yeah,
because,
he's up there with Bigfoot. It's probably like I would say the most well known in America.
Yeah, definitely.
Like probably like the second, well, at least American one, because like it's Bigfoot, probably Loch Ness Monster are the 2 most well known, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. But like some of the stories that I've heard, like quote unquote firsthand accounts of Mothman, like in the beginning, did sound very scary because he's huge. He's got glowing red eyes, and the thing that really creeps me out about him is that like any of the creatures that are like forest dwellers and like anything that's like some of the stuff that scares me the most is the stories about people who like live in the Appalachians. The creepy, like, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get up to Wendigo. Is that there's so much scary shit happening in the forest also. And one of the things that I think is scary about Mothman is like people who have encountered him. Like there's that famous story about people seeing Mothman flying around in the sky before that bridge collapsed, which killed a bunch of people. And so they're like, oh, he's the harbinger of death and blah, blah, blah. And then people started being like, well, maybe he just shows up to try and warn people. And that's not like a firsthand account, like, but so there's been stories where people have said they've encountered him where like the thing that was prevalent is like the intense feeling of dread and silence, which to me, like if you're in the woods, you know how much noise there is all the time. And then Mothman shows up and it's just like dead silent. And to me, that is so creepy. Piercing red eyes. He can fly fast, like as fast as a car, but he's like the size of a man. Like all of that to me sounds very scary. And then like they did kind of start trying to like debunk Mothman and being like, oh yeah, he's this bird. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Have you seen? I don't remember what the name of the bird is, but they're like,
What, like that looks like the Mothman, or
they're trying to say that the sightings of the Mothman are actually this like huge fucking
no.
prehistoric bird.
I know
or
there's
something.
like the Thunderbird, like you know, cryptid-ish thing, but
Yeah.
I don't
So,
think that's the same
anyways,
thing.
yeah, I don't know. I think Mothman, as far as I've known, doesn't actually like hurt anybody. I mean, I guess if he is the harbinger of death actually, and you like saw him, that would be really scary because then you're like, oh, something bad's gonna happen.
Tubi, hear me out. This is how you get Katie and I into one of these documentaries. Sexiest monsters in America.
Definitely. I'm sorry, Mothman's also going to be on that
I know,
list.
it's going to be relatively the same list, probably,
Yeah.
based on...
I mean, probably. He seems ripped. He can fly. I don't know.
Based on any of the stories I've heard about, they all seem ripped. And apparently make too much cum.
Yeah, I'm not here for that. But, okay. Yeah, anything else about Mothman? We stand.
No.
We love Mothman.
I've seen enough pictures of his butt from that statue that I do not find him scary.
I'm gonna go there so bad. Okay. Mothman. Okay. Number 3, again, we've already kind of talked about how we don't agree with this. From Arizona, is La Llorona.
Pass.
Never heard of that from Arizona. This is again kind of like, I mean, a lot of these, to be fair, are what's the word? Where you're stealing the cultural appropriation, of course, like duh. We're talking about America, so, but this one very much so, because it doesn't have any. It's literally not from America, but it's fine.
Wikipedia's like, I guess there's like a version, like it's, you know, it says, let's see, today the lore of La Llorona is well known in Mexico and the southwestern United States. But like, this is, to me, this is like a Mexican or like South American
Definitely.
thing. But I guess there's like versions of it in like indigenous tales. So I guess I'll give it to them, but like, I also still don't think this should be on the list.
No, I don't. I agree. And I think it's also one of those things because like I've heard like it's one of those things where like people who you know, maybe like immigrated or brought the story with them because they use her as like a boogeyman story, like instead of being like.
So this is the thing. This is that's exactly what I was about to get into. The most American thing on this list. So in the Mexican version, it's like it's a story told to children to encourage them not to like wander off, and especially near like dark bodies of water.
Right. A cautionary tale.
Yeah, Guatemala's version, I don't see like a thing about what, you know, like warning kids. In the United States, it's told to scare kids into good behavior.
Yeah.
Which is the most
right.
American thing.
Yeah. And I think the story they told, the backstory of La Llorona that they told in this specific episode was not the version I'd ever heard before, so I'm not sure, like, you know, who knows.
I just watched for Horror Gives Back, like a 1930s La Llorona movie that was fine. But like, after watching that, I was like, why is this on here?
The thing that scares me about her is that, like, you know, I don't feel I need to be scared of her because I think, like, a lot of times she targets children. But one of the nuances of her story that I think is creepy is that, like, when you hear her, you'll hear her, like, crying really loud, like, wail crying. And one of the things is that, like, the farther away her voice sounds, the closer she actually is to you, which, like, freaks me out. So she's like fucking screaming, you're fine. She's not by you. But if you hear her like whisper crying, she's like right on your ass. And that to me is very creepy.
But for me, it's like, fine, you can have my kids. I don't want them.
Well, that's what I'm
So,
saying.
like,
Like,
this
again,
isn't scary.
nothing to
This seems
fear.
like the most blessed monsters in America.
Okay, number two. Again, we have something that I, for some reason, am very scared of the idea of, which is the Wendigo. For some reason,
out of these 10, this should be like number 1 or number 2.
so I'm gonna just go ahead and say that the three things that I am the most like irrationally scared of would be the black-eyed children and either the Wendigo or the skinwalkers. Skinwalkers do not have, you're not even supposed to like, there are ones, again, you're not even supposed to like talk about them. They're not on any of these lists anywhere, and they're so scary to me. Wendigos are, or the idea of them is so scary. And again, I don't know why they have it listed as Minnesota as the state for the Wendigo. Because again, I feel like a lot of like the Wendigo, we talked about this in one of the movies we did. It might have been Lichen Colony. Or it was like something like that where they did a backstory about the Wendigo where essentially the stories for them are also native and go back so far. And then you're going to be like, yeah, Minnesota. Like, because I equate like Wendigos and Skinwalker, like, well, they could be anywhere because Skinwalkers are a little bit different, but like mostly with, again, like the Appalachia, like mountain range.
So the Wendigo, at least according to Wikipedia, is mostly Canadian, it seems, but like in America, it just kind of says Great Plains region, which I guess Minnesota would like qualify. I'm not exactly sure.
And it's just like interesting to me because I've never heard of that specifically.
But like honestly, what they should have done is like I guess it would have like I guess adding North America to the title would have made it like a I don't know, maybe less interesting title. But it's like you could have done it and just left it as like with Mexico and Canada.
Yeah, they maybe they should have done regions because like. But anyways, this is essentially like a creature who the story goes that they were once people who had to, for whatever reason, resort to cannibalism, and that transformed them. And a lot of times when people say they see them, it's like a creature that has like that has like a skull and antlers, kind of like deer-like. Smell. A lot of these are reportedly smell really terrible, which is just really gross. And these seem very scary to me. If I saw this, I would probably pee my pants. Also, the thing that really creeps me out about it is that like they're known to like mimic people's, either you or people you know, and like the creatures that are similar to this. They have this like thing where they say like it's kind of like the same with like mimics, doppelgangers, anything like that, where if you like say you're home alone and you hear somebody call your voice, you do not answer. You pretend like you don't hear it, because that's how they like lure you in. And like the idea of like just like hearing the mimic voice, like obviously who knows what's real and what's not, but there's been a lot of videos of people like walking on trails and stuff like that where they'll just be like recording something and then they'll hear like the quote unquote mimicked voice. And like, don't get me wrong, like I understand people could be altering it, but some of the voices that I've heard, they just like don't sound human. Like people will be like, it'll be like help me or help or like whatever. And the idea of that to me is just very scary. Like if I heard it, I don't know what I would do.
I think like the thing for the Wendigo for me is like the design is cool.
Very cool.
So like that, like again, like I couldn't say I'm necessarily like scared of any of these, as more as like the black-eyed children just kind of like freak me out. But I feel like I'm like, I don't know, fuck it, I've lived long enough. Just leave my cat alone and I'm fine.
I love how like some of these have like real basis in like a real life thing. And then the thing that makes them like cryptids or like folklore or whatever, there's always like something fucking goofy. So like for the Rougarou, the thing that you can, I think I've heard this said about vampires too, maybe. The thing that you can like do to stop them from attacking you is to throw 13 coins on the floor, because Rougarou can only count to 12. So they'll just count and count and count all night. And I'm like, fucking why? For the Wendigo, it's basically like saying its heart is made of ice, so you have to dig out its heart and melt it over a fire to kill it.
Which, you know, seems pretty easy to get next to.
How are you supposed to get this thing? Is like, wow, yeah, I don't know. But I think, yeah. So that's the Wendigo. And then we're gonna go with like number one, which to me, literally not scary at all, is the Washington Bigfoot.
The only, like, the one guy that says he finds it the scariest because it's the most likely one to be, like, real or whatever, like, fine, I get it. I understand that logic. But I'm also like, this is not, like, I almost everything else on this list I feel like I'd be more freaked out by. Than Bigfoot.
Yeah. And like, again, this could go back to like the same thing with the Mothman, where it's just like the Bigfoot is like the most popular one, and like he's just become so normalized that maybe it's not scary. But like, I feel like, again, so again, Bigfoot is characterized as smelling really bad. There's this like really this
rude
thing. I know, right? Like, they're
Bigfoots
fucking animals. Like, what do you mean?
Because he can't come out into, like, the stores.
What's he supposed to do? Yeah. Also, he's probably like an animal, and animals like to be smelly, so just let him live, right?
Probably just a heavy metal fan.
Or an anime fan.
Yeah.
Going to conventions.
He went to Comic-Con.
There's this thing called Bigfoot knocking that people hear, Bigfoot calls. I have never heard a story of somebody being attacked by a Bigfoot, I don't think. So again, to me, it just feels to me like some of these, so like specifically like talking about like the Wendigo and like maybe La Llorona and maybe and like black-eyed children, their literal purpose is to like seek out and attack humans. So to me, there is like a scary factor to that, because like they are predators to us. The rest of these things to me, like Bigfoot, specific, like Bigfoot, Mothman, whatever, they sound to me, and the octopus, they're just fucking living life. They're just like being creatures, you know? It's like saying this bear is scary. Like, well, yeah, sure, being attacked by a bear would be scary, but like, just fucking let it be. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. Bigfoot does not seem scary to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Bigfoot's the man. So, but he's number one. There you go. That's like the scariest monsters in America, according to Tubi.
According to Tubi and some podcasters.
And some content creators. Okay, so then they came out with World in 2023, and we'll try probably and go through this a little faster because that was like almost an hour somehow. I don't feel we'll have a lot to say about a lot of these though, because number 10 is just werewolf.
This one, like when I first started watching it, because like I said, this is the one I watched first, I was just like, come on.
I watched this one second, so like, yeah, but definitely this is kind of like the generalization of like this one to me seems sort of categorical versus like a specific creature, because we have werewolf, Eastern Europe. Yeah, I mean everyone knows what a werewolf is. Do I think a werewolf is scary? Definitely. I think they'd also be on the list of like top 10 sexiest animals though. What did you say the list was?
Oh yeah, we're gonna do one called top 10 sexiest monsters in the world.
Top 10 monsters that I would bang. Werewolf. Okay. Number 9 is the Banshee from England, maybe is what I wrote. Banshee, again, is just also a ghost.
I feel like this was Scottish, maybe.
I thought it was Irish.
Maybe. It's somewhere in that area.
It might have said Europe, and I wrote England. Who knows at this point? Anyways, the Banshee is just, I think, like,
Yeah, all Banshee's
screams.
Irish.
Okay, so that's what I thought. But, I am Irish, so I know a thing or two about Irish monsters. It's usually a female spirit, who is screaming, railing, shrieking. For some reason, like, screaming really bothers me. So the idea that this would be like a ghost floating around fucking screaming at the top of their lungs, to me sounds creepy. Like, if I heard it, I would be scared. Sure, so Banshee, great. I meant to write down how to say this one. Number 8 from Central Africa is... Fuck.
I don't remember.
Jabba Fofi?
Oh, yeah, yeah. This...
Which is a giant spider, essentially.
Oh, that's right.
I feel... And so... It's a giant spider who is said to actually have existed. This was one of the situations where they showed surveillance footage.
I forgot how many of these were like, most people would know this from the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, and Lord of the Rings.
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
essentially,
like I looked up this thing, and a bunch of them were like bigger than a dinner plate. So they're just an Australian spider.
right. And so the way that they depicted this, like in pop culture, the way that they depicted it in the show was that it was like a huge spider, like I don't know, as big as a horse, bigger than a horse.
Like the one at the end of the movie Spiders that we did.
Yeah, huge. To me, to me, this is the one that I think could be real. Because there are already hugely terrifying spiders. If I saw this thing, I would probably have a heart attack.
And so, that's the thing with, like, a lot of these is, like it's a well-known kind of, like, phenomenon. Like, phenomenon's maybe not the right word. But, like, thing that, like, people are bad witnesses.
Yes.
And, like, it's like a thing, especially when it comes to, like, people's, like, eyewitness accounts when it comes to crimes and shit like that, like, almost everything you remember is, like, sensationalized in your brain to the point that, like, yeah, sure, maybe you saw a spider that was, like, big, but then, like, in your brain and then in the process of, like, telling it to other people, it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And, like, that's what most of these were, is it's, like, a lot of these came from, like, pictures times to the point where, like, it's just, word of mouth told down through generations that, like, it just becomes a bigger and bigger thing. And what this probably was just, like, bigger than normal spiders somebody saw once that became, like, this weird cryptid now that's, like, the size of a building.
Right. I did appreciate, too, that there was, I think it was in this one, they had, like, an actual FBI agent, and he was talking about how, in America, before, like, people saw gorillas, like, literally the animal gorilla, and they thought it was a cryptid, because they had never heard of it, like, they didn't know what it was, and then it became normalized. And I do feel... we talked about this in the exorcism bonus episode where you, like, asked me if I believed in, like, paranormal, whatever the fuck. And I basically was like, yeah, I totally believe in, like, something paranormal, but I don't know if I believe in cryptids because of this exact reason. Like, do I think that, like, the chupacabra is, like, a real animal? Yeah, probably. Like, not that it is its own thing. I think that it's, like, some kind of animal that's got something wrong with it. And, like, a lot of these I feel like, are that situation, like the octopus, the werewolf. We did see a video that somebody claimed was a rougarou where they had, like, a video of, like, the thing, what you would think was, like, a bipedal werewolf standing up. And I'm like, I don't know. I've seen a dog stand on its hind legs. I think a wolf could do that. You know what I mean? So, like, I do think that a lot of these could, not specifically on this list, but a lot of cryptids I think probably are creatures that we just don't know what they are, which like that's literally what a cryptid is, but like maybe not categorized as like this is Mothman.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. So number 7 we have the repeat of the Wendigo, which now they have listed as US and Canada.
I like that it was number 2 in the last one, and now it's relegated to 7.
Yeah, makes no sense to me. So number 6, we have the vampire from Romania.
Fine.
I think again, not really much to be said about that. Number 5, we
like,
have...
again, vampires I don't find to be scary.
No.
I feel like I would become a vampire so fast if I was like, if it was a real thing.
I do think, if you're going, I do think that there are real life, like story applications of people who have been considered vampiric that are scarier to me than the idea of like an actual supernatural being. Like, there's been a few like serial killers who were called like the vampire of like whatever, who did really fucking nasty stuff to people. And then if you're going back to like where they think the idea of Dracula, who was like, yeah, again, one of the most famous, probably the most famous known vampire aside from Edward Cullen. He Vlad Dracul, who would like impale his people, and like either like that guy was scary, but like as a supernatural being, I do not think vampires are scary at all.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion. Number 5, we have Baba Yaga from Russia. Again, she's like one of these characters that's just got a lot going on in the goofy factor to me, because she's essentially like a witch, like a hag witch. And she's the one who lives in a house that has chicken legs that walks around.
Oh, and, yeah, that's right.
She also like has her fence leading up to her house has like children's skulls, which again, don't care. And she is said to travel around via mortar and pestle, which, like, for people who don't know what that is, it's essentially just like a stone bowl and like and it's made out of stone, and you use it to like grind up herbs. If you've ever had like tableside guacamole, that's what they're using. So like the idea that she's flying around the woods and like a huge mortar and pestle to me just is like very ridiculous. So I'm gonna say not scary. Number 4, definitely did not expect to see this on here, from Greece, is the basilisk.
I don't even remember this.
Again, made famous from Harry Potter, Chamber of Secrets, the basilisk. This is essentially just a giant snake. And again with the giant spider thing, I would be very scared of a giant basilisk, like of a giant snake. And when we're saying giant snake, it's like a dinosaur-sized snake. It's not just like how a anaconda is giant. This one is crazy. Because and I think this will not surprise people because it is from Greece, but the basilisk is said to, like, if you make eye contact with it, you will die immediately, like turn you to stone, like Medusa or whatever. Also, anything on it that touches you is poisonous, including its breath. And one of the people say, so like some of these are just like very fantastical, and it's like very obviously this is just like a made up story, because this creature again was probably just a snake that bit somebody and then they didn't know what venom was, so they died. But to say that the breath could like kill people a mile out, I don't think so. That was probably a smoke bomb or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe Batman was around and had to escape.
Right, exactly. So then this is the only weakness. And so again, I'm saying like this creature seems completely unapproachable so how would you ever think to kill it? The weakness is 14
coins.
No. It's a cute weakness. It is a weasel. If the basilisk sees a weasel, it will run away. It's scared of a weasel. There was another one, like, there was another one that was like a sound you make, like a sound of a bell or like the sound of a clock or something. I can't remember, but if you make the sound, it runs away, and I'm just like, okay. So it's great. Okay. Um, Number three from Southeast Asia is the churel. Um, this one I feel is not very common. So at least I guess like maybe at least they had some like interesting ones on these. But these are a bit. This one is terrible. This one is, as with most like stories that have to do with like female presenting spirits, they're always like the worst possible thing that could happen to a person, because these like spirits are essentially only happen if somebody has been like murdered, assaulted, like they've died in a really traumatic way, and then they are resurrected as this creature, this extremely disgusting, ugly creature, quote unquote, that appears to men as a beautiful woman. The only thing that's weird about her is that her feet are backwards. Okay, that sounds terrifying. But again, you only have to worry about this creature if you are a man, because she believes in women power. So, she's for the girlies. So I like her.
Woke bullshit in this fucking documentary.
Yep, I love it. Love to see it. This one was like really interesting to me because they showed a lot of video footage of like a woman flying around and stuff. And I'm like, what is this from? Because there's no way it's real, right? But it was spooky. The feet being backwards really freaks me out too.
But also, like, that's the thing though, is then like all the footage they show, like these people had regular feet.
Yeah. Well, the one woman who was like flying around, I don't really know. I couldn't see her feet, but she was pretty freaky. Women climbing buildings, scary. Don't like it. Okay, number two, we have from Egypt, the mummy.
Okay. I mean, at least this is a real thing, but, not in the version they're telling, but, like, mummies are a thing that exists.
So at first I was confused about this one because, like, of course we have a bunch of mummy media, right? Obviously, mummy's like a universal monster, and I was like, I'm really confused as to why they have this in here, because it's not like people have documented cases of mummies. And I think that what they were trying to talk about here was not necessarily the mummy as a creature, but the curse of the mummy, which is well documented that people, excavators, quote unquote, whatever, who have gone into pyramids and like desecrated these tombs have been cursed and have died. And so that's the part that's scary. Here's a really simple way to avoid that. Fucking leave their relics alone. They're not yours.
Yeah.
So just don't. I don't know. So to me, that's not like a curse. The idea of a curse to me is scary, but like you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. So like that's kind of on you, I feel.
I just like the thing about a mummy though is like they're so fucking slow that like to me they're not scary.
Yeah. And I think, I'm not scared. And of course, you guys know one of my favorite movies is Under Wraps, about the mummy Harold, who is just a big sweetie pie. So I feel like they're just misunderstood, And number one, from Haiti, the zombie.
All right.
They fucking went on and on and on about zombies. I did appreciate that they kind of went through the history of the zombie, like the origin of where it actually came from, which like non-surprisingly roots in racism. And the story they told of that man who like died and they buried him, and then somebody dug him up and like did his like magic spell to make him a zombie, and then he like showed back up 40 years later. I have heard of that before. And I saw pictures and I'm like, I don't know, maybe it seems crazy though. But I mean, I guess he could have just been a lookalike, but then he was like reported to have known things that like, how would you as a stranger know what his family called him when he was a child and like stuff like that. Um, the idea of that is like kind of scary to me in that situation. I don't know, because they kind of made it seem like, oh, I'm scared because as Americans, the thing that we love is freedom of choice, and you're having your freedom of choice taken away. And I'm like, that's not really what's scary about it to me. But
No, see, like, a zombie to me isn't scary. A horde of
yeah,
zombies is.
sure,
Because, like, and that's like the thing I always argue when it comes to the, like, the slow versus fast
yeah,
zombies thing, is I'm like, yeah, fine, fast zombies, you're gonna die, like, immediately. Like, slow zombies, when there's, like, three, feels manageable, but then all of a sudden there's, like, once there's, like, it gets to a point where they're just, like, surrounding a building, you're fucked. Like, there's just so many that it becomes, like, unmanageable. And that's what
yeah.
I think is scary about them. And, like, I don't know. Like, yeah, this was a weird, like, a weird one to be, like, number one for me.
Yeah, because I think that like the thing that was like about all of these is just like the is like I don't know, they made this one so personal. Like they made it as like it's being scary because like this is a thing that could actually happen to us. And a lot of people are like very convinced that this zombie apocalypse thing is going to happen, right? And so they kind of made it seem like from a standpoint of like me being an individual person, like I should be scared of a zombie because it could happen to me, rather than just like the idea of like the Mothman. Like they're not saying the Mothman is going to happen to you. You know what I mean? So like they just like went real deep on the zombie, and I was like, I'm assuming the people whoever made this was just like, I only want to talk to people who love zombies, kind of thing. And I'm like, well, that's all right, great. I don't.
It's one of the, it's weird because it's like, I mean, there are scientists have talked about, like, they've actively look into trying to, like, revive corpses and shit,
Sure.
which seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, I
But,
think
like,
so.
the thing about, like, the modern zombie myth, not, like, the Haitian version, is, like, it would have to be, like, a bio weapon sort of thing that becomes transferable through them, which is the part that doesn't seem realistic to me.
Right.
So, like, I don't. I like anytime there's one of these documentaries talks about zombies, they're like, it could happen, and I'm like, not really.
It could happen tomorrow.
Like, maybe at some point science will figure out a way to, like, revive one of these corpses to where it's, like, sort of a shambling thing, but, like, the bioweapon version of it doesn't seem realistic to me.
Yeah. 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 I think I don't know. I don't feel again, maybe I don't know. I just like don't feel like zombie is number one scary thing to me.
No, should have been that giant worm.
The Mongolian death
Yeah.
worm. I will say they literally only listed one thing that I had like never heard of in any way, shape, or form, and it was one of the things they said that did not make the list for world, and it was Lady Midday, and I was like, what is that? And it's essentially like I think it's like a ghost woman with a scythe, and I was like, I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down for Lady Midday. Um, but it was one of those things. The same thing with Scariest Places series, where I felt like they missed a lot of places that have like a lot of history and things like that, in lieu of just talking about kind of like popular places. And then I think for the number one on both the world and the America, it was the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which to me, like, sure, might have been scary when it was still up and running, but like as a deserted, quote unquote, haunted place, it didn't really seem like it had that much stuff for it to be number one scary or whatever.
Number one
But
is
I don't
Zach
know, whatever.
Bagans Museum in Las Vegas.
Definitely. And it's actually just his house where he lives.
Yeah, I don't know. You can watch these if you want. They're fine.
Again, I think that they're fun to just like throw on in the background, and essentially, if you're trying to maybe like I don't know, check out more topics and do your own research, I feel like this is fine to just like jot down some stuff. But it's again, like it's just their opinion, right? Obviously, it all is, and so I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah,
I've
like,
watched 4 of them now.
I might watch the Scariest Places ones, or like maybe just throw it on while I'm working or something.
Yeah.
Um,
That one I think to me was better than these because even though they are still talking largely about hauntings and things like that, you're seeing footage of the actual like they're real places, right? So you're seeing the footage and you're hearing the history about like what happened. So to me, it was like a little more interesting because it's like historical, if that makes sense, like in some ways. But
my recommendations are fucked now from watching these 2 documentaries.
imagine how I feel. I've watched 4 of them, and then it's like mostly just stuff for the podcast. And it's like, do you want to watch Dirty Diaper Cops or whatever? And I'm like, no.
I mean, most of mine now are like kind of like that. Just the other ones in that, like that Rougarou one we watched.
Yeah, yeah.
But then there's like, where did it go? There was one that had like a funny title. Oh, I want to watch Bridgewater Triangle Paranormal Vortex.
Yeah, I think Bridgewater is interesting.
Expedition Dogman.
Yeah, great. I'm sure that's great.
Dogman Tales. What the fuck is Dogman?
It's what it sounds like. He's a dog man.
It's all that and then like weird metal documentaries, which I'm not really sure why these are being promoted to me. What is Tubi Original Dead Hot?
What is exactly what it sounds like?
It says it's a document. After a ghost hunt gone wrong, students of witchcraft Vanessa Hudgens and Gigi Magri travel to Salem, Massachusetts to seek out proper mentorship from experts in witchcraft. I'm sorry, is Vanessa Hudgens now like a ghost hunter and student of witchcraft?
I guess so, yeah. You know what's scary to me about the dog man? Is that he's described as being a 7-foot tall, like bipedal canine. So like a werewolf, but more dog looking than wolf, obviously, right? But also he's described as having blue eyes, and for some reason that really scares me. This like huge creature with like piercing blue eyes. I don't know. That sounds scary to me.
All right, you want to get into your stories?
Yes, I need to go get some water for it though.
All right.
So, pause.
I'm gonna talk about the dog man for
Okay.
the whole time you're gone.
All right.
I don't know anything about the dog man, and I assume he's very cute and looks like a Saint Bernard. All right, I'm out of story. Let's see what other documentaries Tubi's promoting to me that I'm absolutely not gonna watch. We got Strange Inheritance, which is maybe a true crime thing. Bigfoot. On the Trail of Bigfoot, Land of the Missing. No thank you. What's Visitors from Hell? From demonic possession to ghostly hauntings, discover the real-life encounters with the paranormal that have turned victims' lives into nightmares. Pass. There's some interesting actual horror documentaries on here that also have very bad Tubi posters, so maybe not. Stale popcorn and sticky floors. This is Dustin Ferguson doctor movie. This is probably not great. In Search of All American Massacre. I'm just telling everybody about all the documentaries being promoted to me.
Okay, great.
Wait, Okay, a documentary team sets out to find All-American Massacre, the Lost Texas Chainsaw Massacre spinoff that was supposed to have come out in 2000. What the fuck is this?
Ooh, piqued your interest.
Well, I got a bunch of like horror movie sort of ish documentaries on here.
Yeah.
Like the 50 best horror movies you've never seen, which I did watch and is bad. But like there's like Smoke and Mirrors, the like Tom Savini documentary, VHS Nasty.
I have a bunch of like horror docs on my watch list, and I just never, I don't know why, I just like never get around to watching them.
Yeah, I need to watch some of these. I'm sure they're not great. A lot of the posters are like that Tubi poster art that looks terrible, but
yeah.
It also keeps trying to get me to watch Batwoman, which looks bad.
Batwoman?
Yeah, like the CW show.
Oh. I was gonna I don't know why I was like not really interested in what's the first person who played Batwoman?
I can't remember her name. I just know she was on Orange is the New Black for like a season.
And so like there was one crossover, CW crossover that they did that they were in, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this. And I was like, maybe I'll just like watch whenever the new actress comes on. And then like it was canceled, and I was like, do I really want to like, no, I don't think I really care. I don't know. Maybe eventually I will. All right, I got a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry.
Gross.
I'm ready to go. It's good this year, you guys. Delicious. 'Tis the season.
Was it not good the previous years?
There was one year that I bought it and I did not like it. And I don't know, like, I don't know why. Like, I don't know what was different about it that year, but I didn't like it. And so I had to get like a pack of cans of it. So I was like, well, hope it's good. And it is. So I also got hot cocoa Oreos, but I haven't tried them yet.
Sounds good.
Sounds good as hell. I was gonna try it, but I'm not ready to open them. Okay. So the second half is gonna be spooky paranormal stories from friends and listeners. They're all friends, actually. I pretty much. And I'm just really excited. So the first two that I'm going to read are very short, but they have like really similar experiences, and they were told to me in conversations. So I've kind of like clipped together and made it like more of like a story than a conversation. And then the last three were emailed to me. Two of them I have not read. So I was like, maybe it'd be a good idea for me to read through this for like typos or to make sure that I can read it properly. But then I wanted to be surprised by the story, so sorry in advance if it sounds stupid.
I hope they're erotic. We ended up reading somebody's like weird story about fucking a ghost.
Well, one's from Tiffany, so I don't think so. The second one is from Chris.
Probably know Tiffany's then.
And so his might be erotic. I don't know. Okay. So here we go. The first one is from beautiful friend, the podcast listener, Layla. And she said, last year out of nowhere, Penny, my dear dog, Penny is a very, very cute dog, yes, developed a fear of the hallway leading from my living room to the bedroom. She sleeps in my room, so we'd go down that hallway every night. But all of a sudden, nope. Couldn't drag her, couldn't bribe her. She'd cry and bulk and refuse, and I'd have to carry her every night. She is 50 pounds, and I do not lift, so it's just not feasible. Since I was a kid, I've been known to see a quote-unquote shadow man or figure occasionally hovering at the corners of my room. And when I would tell my mom about it, she said, just acknowledge them and tell them to move on, that this is not their place. So one night I tried that. I said, okay, if you're there, I acknowledge you, but we don't want your presence in this house. And that night, Penny walked down the hallway and went to bed as usual. So one of the things that creeps me out about there's two things. There's two things that kind of like validate and or spook me about any kind of paranormal things, and it's always like animals. Um, Sometimes animals just like act weird, right? But like when their routine is disrupted by something, like to me that seems credible because it's like how many times has Penny walked down that hallway and then all of a sudden she gets so scared that she can't even like you can't even like pull her down. You have to like carry her. Then you say like, okay, like I acknowledge you here, but please go away. Like you're scaring my dog. And then that night, Penny's fine. That to me is very weird because like in my mind, there's like, what's the explanation for that happening?
Yeah. Animals, like, just, like, especially when they just, like, stare at, like, a random spot or, like they're watching something that, like, you can't see is always upsetting.
Well, and especially when it's, well, like, because, you know, like, with cats, it could be anything. Like, it could be a speck of, like, I don't know, dust on the ceiling that they're just, like, staring at. But there's, like, a difference between them just, like, staring at something and then being scared. Because then it's, like, they don't just, like, get scared for no reason, usually. So the second one is from my friend Lindsay about her son, who I'm going to call Bob. So Lindsay says, when Bob was about 9 months old, there was something he saw in our old house. It woke him up at night and was always in the same corner of the room. He would toss and turn, then pull himself up the side of his crib. He would point, whine, cry, and scream, always in the direction of that corner. This went on for about 4 to 5 months, almost every night. Then one day, I was picking up his room, and I said out loud, "Hang out, but don't frighten my baby," not really expecting anything. Bob immediately stopped his nighttime freakouts. 2 years later, when we were moving out, he told my husband and I that he needed to say goodbye to his friend. We were super confused. So he goes to his room, he points to the corner, and he said, "She's going to miss me, and I'm going to miss her." He doesn't remember any of it now, but my husband and I will never forget it. So baby things freak me out too, because there's just like so many instances of them interacting with things that like the parents can't see.
Yeah.
And you know, there's like this whole theory behind like babies and older people being like, you know, like old, like advanced, like people who, you know, they're closer, quote unquote, closer to death, like having just been born or being on the verge of like dying essentially. So there's like so many stories of like those two extremes that it's just like so weird to me. And like, aside from just like the baby, the thing that I thought was like so interesting about both of these stories is that it came down to like, there's this behavior happening and then you're just acknowledging what happened and then it stops. And like, I personally have had experiences like that too, where I was like experiencing something and then I said like, "Hey, you can be here. It's cool, but you need to leave me alone because like I'm not up for like the shenanigans. So like stop. You can stay here." And then the thing that I was experiencing stopped. And so I don't know if like could be maybe people just are, I don't know. It just seems so hard to explain to me because like had you not said like, "Hey, please stop," like would Penny have been able to walk down the hallway? Like, was it just like a weird coincidence? But I just like feel like there's such a thin line between like coincidence and like the situation. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Spooky.
Like anytime anyone sees a thing that's like not there to like you or whatever, it's always not great. Not into it.
I don't know. And I think the thing about it that is spooky too, it's like it is unexplainable because like how also do you explain like the behavior of your child, like I don't know, just like freaking out every single night and then all of a sudden they just like stop. It's not like I don't know, very weird to me. Either way, I'm glad Bob and Penny are both not scared in their house anymore. Okay, so I have two stories from my friend Stephanie. And the last story, I think, one of them is she was a nanny, and there's like two stories in this same house that she worked in. So it says, I was a full-time nanny for this Catholic family in a nice neighborhood in the foothills of the mountains. There was a mom, a dad, two boys, one girl, and the grandparents who lived on the other side of the house. The oldest boy would go to school every day, and I would be left with Carter, who was 3 at the time, and Gracie, who was 1. So she's just babysitting the 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. One day, Gracie was down for a nap, and I was cleaning up after lunch in the kitchen. I can hear Carter playing in his room and talking. I finished cleaning up, and I walked down the hallway to his room. I said, "Hey, Carter, who are you talking to?" Thinking that he was going to explain the scene going on with his toys, like little boy things. But he very casually replied, "The witch." My stomach dropped. I got so scared. I just laughed nervously and said, "Hey, girl," because I'm not trying to start beef with some unknown entity. And then Carter followed me into the living room. Oof. I mentioned this to his parents later that day, and they just casually told me, "Oh, yeah, that room is haunted," and then went on to explain how there had been occurrences in that room for years, from the time the dad was growing up in that house. And they even had a priest come to cleanse or exorcise the room, but it didn't work, obviously. The second thing that happened when I was home alone with Gracie, who at that point in time was almost 3 herself. She was potty training, so I was in the habit of telling her, or regularly reminding her, to go to the bathroom. I reminded her to go, and she ran down the hall, and I turned around on the couch to watch her. This hall is the main hall of the house. It is long and dark, since everyone's bedrooms and bathrooms are offshoots. So it's essentially just like a hall, and then there's rooms on both sides, and there's no windows to the outside. Essentially. So she turns to look down the dark hallway, which already absolutely not. As she's turning to go into the bathroom, a ball rolls out of the dark from Carter's room. Again, nobody else is home except me and Gracie, and it rolls right past Gracie and gets to me at the couch. It had some speed to it, and it rolled past Gracie, so it definitely wasn't her that moved it. Yeah, I don't like that. It's really interesting to me that, like, in situations like this, when you have an experience and then you she has an experience in this house, and then she tells the parents, and the parents is like, "Oh yeah, weird stuff has been happening all the time." Because like there's that like weird thing where it's like, if you like, as the people who are hiring a nanny, like, how do you decide that you're going to tell them, like, "Oh yeah, by the way, sometimes weird things happen here," but they just like didn't say anything and just kind of like assumed maybe that nothing would happen to her, and then when she did, they were just like, "Oh yeah, it's totally normal." I don't know, that would really freak me out. Again, with the kids though, like that's like such a, I feel like typical thing where like the kids are talking to no one because they're just like playing or whatever. But if you're like, "Hey, who are you talking to?" and he says "the witch," I don't think so.
I just think all kids are haunted.
I think so. And then, like, eventually they either grow out of it or, like, you become a medium, I guess. I don't know.
You become Zach Baggins.
You become Zach Baggins. Okay, so here's her last story. This takes place at her work. So she says, "I was sitting at my sewing table in my office and was really concentrated on cleaning dust out of the machine. I was really focused, and no part of me was moving aside from my hand, which is why I was surprised when I spotted a small roll of tape rolling by in my peripheral vision. I thought, oh, I guess I must have knocked it off my desk, but it didn't make sense since literally nothing else was moving. Like, she was just touching her machine. She wasn't like moving the table or anything. Being that this isn't an office in a sketchy area, there are Ring cameras in every office, so I went back to watch the video, and I see myself sitting super still, working on the sewing machine, and then the tape come rolling out from under the desk and went under my chair." She then was trying to say she tried to save the footage or whatever. So that is, again, one of those things that, like, you're very sure that you weren't moving and you didn't do anything, and then all of a sudden something's moving, and that's creepy, but you can explain that away in your mind, right? Like, I don't know, maybe not, even though she watched the video footage or whatever. There was another video footage that she sent me. This is, like, not the only thing that happened in her office. There's been other weird things, and she sent me this one video where, like, she's in the same office and she's, like, sitting there, and there was, like, a rag or something that just, like, was sitting very firmly, like, in the middle of something, and it just, like, fucking flew onto the ground. And, like, I saw the video with my own eyes, so I know that, like, she's not like a hacker. She can't, like, make the video up. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally Ring footage. So it's, like, all of these small things. And then there was, like, some other weird thing that happened where there was, like, a black void on the camera or something. But I don't know. It's just, like, one of those things where, like, I know her personally, and she talked to me. She was, like, talking to me when it happened, like, right after it happened. And it's, like, some of those things you just are like, okay, I'm just gonna, like, explain it away. But then once you start, like, multiple things just keep happening, it's like, how can you explain that? Like, I've seen the video with my own eyes. It wasn't like do you know what I mean? I don't
more
know.
concerned is my biggest concern is what you think a hacker does. Because I don't think it's make videos.
You don't know that. How do you know what they do?
Fair point. Touche.
All right, I don't think you know what
I've seen
hackers
the movie
do.
Hackers, and I've seen Turbulence 3, Heavy Metal.
What does that have to do with hackers?
Remember the one guy was, like, a hacker that was, like, wearing a fucking bandana, and then, like, the FBI agent pretends to bring a pizza and shit.
Oh my god.
And, like, the
Yes,
only reason
yes, I
anyone
do.
can see what's going on the plane is because this fucking hacker.
He hacked into the live stream. Yeah. Okay, I do remember that. Okay, well, I think that guy probably could have hacked a video. This wasn't a TikTok, you know? So that creeps me out. Again, number one, the children. Number two, the parents. And especially, like, I don't know why. One of the other things that I'm really creeped out by is, like, I'm not religious at all, but the idea of, like, a demon really freaks me out. And so the fact that they had this family come and, like even do, like, an exorcism or what, not, well, they didn't do an exorcism, but they did, like, a cleansing. But, like, from a religious standpoint, like, freaks me out too. I don't know. And then again, like I said, I've seen some of the evidence of, like, the weird stuff that's happened in her office. So I don't know. I'm like, girl, you need to cleanse that place. Okay, we have two more people. We'll do Tiffany next. She's got two stories.
The Oregon District House.
I think one of them is. And the other one looks like maybe a childhood story, which I have not heard. So okay. So she says, in the year 2003, I moved into this house with my ex and his band. Everyone else's bedrooms were upstairs and ours was downstairs. You could tell that originally the downstairs was a much more open floor plan, which had been converted into 3 rooms with panel walls. That sounds terrible also. The one in the very front was our bedroom. Then the living room and the dining room. So basically she's living in a space where it's split into 3.
Yeah, I remember this house.
2 rooms that are just, like, public rooms, and then their bedroom. That sounds awful. I guess, you know, whatever, college-ish stuff. We also had a super creepy basement that we referred to as the murder basement. I lived in an apartment with a murder basement, so I get it. It was super creepy, and I didn't spend much time down there. I hated being in this house alone. It had such a creepy feeling. I never felt like I was truly alone. Anytime I walked past the stairs, I felt like I could just feel someone standing at the top of the stairs staring down at me. I hate that so much. Over the year I lived there, we had a few creepy things happen, like noises, but it was mostly just creepy feelings we all had. Years after moving out of that house, I was telling someone about it, and they asked me more questions about where it was. very close to historical town center in a small Ohio town. And they got weirder and weirder about it. Eventually, they told me that that house used to be a funeral home. Absolutely not.
I could see. I could see the way that house is laid out. I could see that.
Woof. That would explain a murder basement. Like, that's probably like usually where they do embalming and whatnot. My brain immediately considered the weird floor plan where the one large room had been turned into 3 rooms, and the weird basement with the random hookups for sinks and stuff that made no sense. Turns out that for a year I was sleeping in the front room of a funeral home. So funeral homes, I think, to me are inherently creepy. Like, people think are inherently creepy, but people don't normally die there. So I'm wondering, like, if there is some kind of like residual presence or something in that house connected to the funeral home. Like, it wouldn't be a person who went through it. It would be somebody who like lived, like worked and or lived there maybe. And that to me freaks me out. Like, that feeling of like feeling like somebody is standing at the top of the stairs, like glaring at you, to me, like I've felt that before and it is so creepy. I don't know. Everything about that situation sounds terrible to me.
Yeah, that house was weird. We used to hang out there a lot, like, because I think it was before she was actually married. And, like, she would be up late and I was working nights, so, like, you know, we would just, like, hang out and go to, like, Steak and Shake or whatever and get food and then go back and, like, watch movies and shit. And that house was definitely weird. Like, I can't say I necessarily, like, experienced anything, but it was, like, I remember, like, having that thought of, like, the layout of this house is strange.
Yeah. Weird. Woof. Okay, here's her second story. When I was a kid, we lived with my grandparent in my grandparents' old house. Already creepy, if you ask me. If your grandparents own a house, that house is creepy. That's all I'm saying. It was a pretty big old house, basement, 2 floors, and a particularly finished attic. Oh, partially, might be. See, this is why I should have read it beforehand. I don't know how to read. A partially finished attic. My brother and I loved to go into the attic because we weren't supposed to go up there. It was just for storage, but we were always fascinated by the boxes up there. One night I was in bed and I heard very distinct footsteps above me walking back and forth upstairs in the attic. No. I got excited because I was allowed to be up there if my parents were up there. So, like, I'm assuming she thinks that it's her parents. I wandered up the stairs and it was quiet and dark. I flipped the lights on and wondered how they could have made it downstairs without me noticing. Ooh. I wandered all the way back down to the first floor where my parents were sitting watching TV. I looked confused and I asked them if they had been in the attic. They said no, and I told them I heard people walking up there. My dad jumped up and grabbed a baseball bat. He climbed all the stairs and told me to stay in my room. I guess he went up there and cleared every room and came back down baffled. They decided I had been hearing things or I was mistaken. I knew I wasn't, though. Some nights I would hear the footsteps moving deliberately across the floor above my bed. I would sneak up sometimes to poke my nose around, and I never saw anyone or anything. Gross. I learned later that in the 70s, my parents rented the finished part of the attic out to an undocumented Mexican couple. One day they sort of disappeared and they never heard from them again. I don't know any other details of that story, but I assumed that they had to go back or were deported. But part of me has always wondered if they were somehow the ones moving around in the attic as ghosts all those years later. Woof. Footsteps to me are really scary, because not even just so much from like a supernatural like level, but now I'm terrified of a Frogger. So either way, very scary. And specifically that they're walking back and forth like above your bed or whatever. Like, you can't mistake the sound of footsteps above you. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't say if they had pets or anything, but like footsteps are, I feel, like such a specific sound. You don't like mistakenly hear them. I don't know. That's really creepy. Because like, if you think about it, like, you're like, okay, well, like maybe her brother ran up there, but like, obviously it sounds like you would hear them walking up and down those stairs if it's like a partially finished attic, they're probably wooden. And so you would like very clearly hear if somebody came down, especially if like, it's not like, I don't know, he ran, you know, I don't know. That's creepy. I don't like it.
There was a house in the Oregon district, which was like this old historic area where like all the like quote unquote like hipster bars and shit were at in Dayton. That maybe Tiffany didn't tell me the story, but like I feel like everyone I knew that had ever gone in that house, because I think somebody from like a band lived in it for a while, so like a lot of people I knew had like gone to hang out in it. We're just like, no, this place is fucked up, don't go there.
Yeah.
And like that's, for some reason, that's what I thought one of the stories was going to be about. But maybe Tiffany wasn't like somebody that told me about it, now that I'm thinking about it. But like there was like, it's like Dayton has like this weird amount of like the house I was living in before I moved to New Jersey was like old military housing. Like right next to the Air Force Base. There was a shit ton of like historical buildings in like downtown Dayton. And so like I feel like there's like a big like a lot of like these sort of haunted house stories there.
Yeah.
Just because of how old a lot of the buildings are.
Yeah, sounds bad.
Yeah, don't go to Dayton.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I think there. Yeah. Ohio sounds like there's a lot of like weird stuff that happens there. Like not just because of like how old it is, but like I don't know.
I think people are just
I don't
bored
know,
and like pay attention to things that are happening because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's actually true. Any of the places too, like that, or like Georgia, or anything that's like southern-ish and old, I feel like people search for spooky stuff to be happening.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like, you know, I have talked about this before, but like I don't know, some places like that just have like such a creepy feeling, like even if there's like nothing actually going on, just because of like how old they are and like how many people have like been in that space. So it's just like it has like a creepy feeling, a rundown feeling. Okay, so our last story is from Chris, who you can hear in the Junesploitation episode that Nathan did that was probably 4 hours long.
we at some point when we're actually both done watching these movies, we're doing a Horror Gives Back one sometime soon.
Yeah, so
I think I still have like 3 movies I gotta fucking watch.
And I have not read this again, so let's see what happens. Okay, so he says, to the best of my recollection, this happened between November and January of 2002, 2003. I was playing guitar in a local hardcore band. We sucked, but we had a solid local following, which for a bunch of directionless guys in their late teens and early 20s was kind of a big deal. By 2002, we had been together for a couple years and had spent the previous ones practicing in the tiny loft of an old barn at our drummer's house. That sounds spooky to me already. An old barn, the loft. Okay, an attic is bad. An old barn, worse. The attic of an old barn, terrible. It had electricity, but little else aside from our gear and a shitty old love seat that provided seating for 2 out of the 5 of us during our frequent cigarette breaks. We sweat all summer when we weren't crowded around a single floor fan, watched moisture beat up on our amps and drums whenever it rained, and the loft filled with damp air, and froze to death all winter, getting little more accomplished than a quick set run through with numb fingers. Fingertips struggling to find the correct strings. That sounds so bad already. That's terrible. A single space heater provided no relief as the space had no insulation and no warmth was ever able to build up to a comfortable level. It sucked, but it also had the kind of charm that brings people together in shitty circumstances. Sure. The best part was that it was free, and considering that the drummer and I were the only ones who chose to hold down regular jobs of any kind, and the band made zero money, we sucked it up for a couple of years and made it work. Coming into the end of the summer of 2002, we had kind of had enough with the barn. The heat was causing tempers to flare more frequent. I cannot imagine trying to play an instrument in like a barn in the summertime.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually say where this is.
He's in Massachusetts, I think, so.
Yeah, woof. Okay. Temperatures to flare, and that combined with our 3 times a week practice schedule was causing accelerated wear on our instruments, resulting in rusting guitar strings and perpetually out of tune drum heads. Something had to change if we were going to continue as a group, and while looking back on it with 20 years of hindsight, our problems were much larger than this place sucks because it has no AC. We decided that we would put whatever meager money we did manage to make from playing local venues was going to go towards renting a space for at least the winter. The band members collectively agreed to find a way to make up the rest of our rent, which meant the drummer and I would take care of most when we weren't supplemented by the vocalist. Drugs, woof. And so the hunt was on for a practice space. We found a space available, and this situation already sucks because like you see so many times, like so many of these like stories are about people who like families who are struggling, and then they like get this big break where they are able to afford this like gorgeous house, and it's like all they can afford, and they've been like struggling to get there, and then they get there, and then they're like tormented by something. It makes it like so much worse to me. Like you're already emotionally so exhausted by the time you get to whatever the situation is. So I can't even imagine. We found a place available, and after checking it out, decided it was perfect, or at least perfect for what we needed. It was on the second floor of an old building, which housed a candle factory on the main level. The landlord said we could have access all night, every night from 6 p.m. until whenever. Ugh, ew. There was a freight elevator, I don't think so, that we could use if he was around to get our gear upstairs and downstairs, and he basically didn't care what we did, provided that we didn't use the non-functioning bathroom. There was one we had access to on the main floor and had no parties, didn't reside up there. Our vocalist and his rotating roster of whoever filled the position of girlfriend moved in almost immediately. God. Sleeping on air mattresses and washing up in the bathroom downstairs before the factory opened. And didn't fuck with the candle business on the main floor. There was still no heat, but at least the space was sealed up enough that a couple secondhand heaters could make things tolerable. Looking back on it now, this was the type of spot most bands would kill for. Rent was something like $400, electricity included, and a hands-off landlord, and a relatively secure building. So we paid our first month and moved our gear in. We started practicing or hanging out almost every night. The town cops used the parking lot as a speed trap, so we never needed to worry about our vehicles being broken into, but had to have the owner of the building talk to a few of them when they stopped us one evening and accused the band of trying to break into the building, which is hard to do when you have a key. That doesn't surprise me at all. Hey, what are you kids doing breaking in with using that key to unlock the door?
Yeah. Punks and their keys.
Yeah. After that, the only problems we had were trying to sneak cases of whatever cheap beer we could afford into the building if we happened to arrive around the same time that the cruiser was parked in the lot. And it seemed things were good. Oh yeah, there was one other rule that the landlord had. Don't go up to the third floor. Great. Super. The freight elevator stopped at the second floor, but the third floor was only accessible via a staircase up from the second floor or from a large set of barn doors visible from the outside. It sounds bad. I would assume that they only used the third floor for storage many years ago, hauling goods up via rope and pulley. This like old-timey candle factory building. With the large steel boom arm still attached to the side of the building. Like any shitbag punk kids, when you tell them not to do something, they're obviously going to do the thing. Yeah, great. The staircase going up to the top floor was closed off behind a large wooden door. But one night, after a few hours of practicing in too many ice houses, I assume that's a beer. That's not regional to me. We decided to go up there. Great. Alcohol and breaking into like locked parts of buildings. It usually works out. So I'm hopeful for them here. After removing the screws from the hinges, we were able to pull the door open enough that I could slide past and edge onto the stairs. Bad. This is already bad. It was pitch black on the other side of the door, uncomfortably dark. Nobody had a cell phone at this point or a flashlight, but I remember someone having a digital camera. No! So after letting my eyes adjust the best they could to the absolute darkness in the stairwell, I volunteered to take the camera up and snap a few pictures with the flash. So we could hopefully see what was up there. That sounds so scary. I hate this. It was probably fear messing with me, but the stairs felt like they just kept going, almost like I was climbing much, much higher than where the side of the stairwell and the ceiling of the second floor met. I finally felt the edge of the third floor with my hand, quickly snapped a series of photos in all directions, the flash barely cutting through the darkness, and then headed back down towards the sliver of light at the doorway. Oh, I hate it. This reminds me of like peeking up into an attic, which is terrifying. I don't like it. We could only look at the pictures on the tiny digital screen on the camera. They didn't really reveal much. Some blurry old crates and boxes, a floor in poor condition, which was probably the reason the landlord didn't want anyone up there. Obviously, no windows of any kind, but what few details we could make out were obscured by tons of white and gray spots. All those ghost hunting shows refer to them as orbs. Telltale signs of paranormal activity, but we just assumed that it was a cheap camera struggling to take pictures in a room absent of any kind of light. Bummed that there wasn't anything cooler to see, we put the hinges back on into place and resumed hanging out. Opening the door almost seemed to trigger everything that followed. Oh no. Shortly after, everyone started seeing and hearing strange things on a regular basis. If you had to go downstairs to use the bathroom, it felt like you were being watched. I swear that one time when I went down, I caught the shadow of someone lurking in a far corner of the hallway as I exited the bathroom, causing me to sprint back up the stairs to the rest of the band. We started going in pairs, concerned perhaps that there was a vagrant hiding in the building, but that didn't do anything to alleviate the feeling that we were being observed by somebody. So it's a pervert ghost. Hearing the sound of... Oh my God, no, I hate this. Hearing the sound of somebody running across the floor in the far corner of the second floor became the norm. And like so that's like in the room that they are in. And while we assumed it was a stray cat or cats living in the building, searches with flashlights never revealed anything. Oh, I literally hate unexplained running. That's so scary. Never revealed anything or even signs of an animal bearing some mouse shit in corners. Like, again, a mouse is not going to sound like a human, like a person running, you know. The lead singer and his latest partner stopped staying there. He claimed it was because the landlord caught them sneaking out one morning, and while this was definitely a possibility, I think things got too spooky for him and he skated on out of there. I'm assuming he's referring to skateboarding. He skateboarded out of the building. Mm-hmm. Making the trip downstairs to the bathroom stopped altogether as we were all too afraid to go downstairs, and we started using the broken toilet on the second floor, turning it on into a cesspool that we flushed down to somewhere with a bucket of water. We would haul upstairs once every couple of days. Ugh. One evening, after going to use the broken toilet, our other guitar player came hastily back into the practice space and began packing up his stuff. He was demanding that we call it a night, saying that he wanted to go home. While I was driving him back, he told me that while he was in the bathroom, he saw some black clawed creature in the corner of the room that ran away when he got a look at it. Oh, gross. I insisted he saw a cat that saw the cat we had been hearing running around, but he was adamant that it was not a cat. He was always a logical person, and I really had no reason to doubt him. Oof. Ew. Within a week or so, things got worse. We were getting into arguments almost every time we got together. Progress had slowed, then stopped, and our sessions were little more than a couple hours of getting drunk, airing our collective grievances, and occasionally playing music. That thing that was running around was getting louder, heavier sounding, and despite the fact that it was now the start of a very cold January, the drummer and I, who were really the only people getting along, started having private discussions about returning to the barn. At least we got along as a group and practiced there. We were accomplishing less than nothing and still weren't all that warm. Plus the barn was free, and maybe the rent money we were spending we could half-heartedly insulate the walls with some moving blankets and make it bearable. After talking with the band, we decided that we would ride out the January we had already paid for and then move out at the end of the month. A day or so later, we got together and noticed that some of our gear had been moved around. Not a ton, but enough that we could tell things weren't where we had left them. The drummer called the landlord the next day to let him know that we were moving out on February 1st, but also asked him if he had been on the second floor. He insisted that we were the only ones who had access aside from him, and that he had not gone up there since we moved in. At the following practice, one of our amps had been moved halfway across the room, and there were several dead mice torn into pieces littering the floor. Ew. Again, maybe a cat, but cats don't move 50-pound amplifiers. After picking up mouse parts, we decided to take the evening off. It was either that or another day shortly after that something followed me home. That is, first of all, disgusting. Ew, okay. Full disclosure, I have always been sensitive to what could easily be called paranormal activity. Prior to these goings-on, I had already seen partial apparitions on several occasions, and one time watched a near full-body spirit walk across my backyard one night while I was out smoking a cigarette. While I don't expect anyone to believe that or any of the story, what happened this particular night was the only time I have genuinely been frightened by something that I cannot explain. I believe you. I don't remember driving home that night, but I was giving the other guitar player a ride home, like a ride to and from practice, so I know that I stopped halfway back to my place and dropped him off. Aside from that, I can only say that I got home and went to bed. My then girlfriend was basically living with me at this time, and at some point in the night, I woke to her thrashing wildly next to me and yelling. Thinking she was having a terrible nightmare, I tried to roll over to comfort her, but I couldn't. Oh no! I struggled, but could not move my torso. I felt as though something had pinned me down by my neck. I remember the air in the bedroom felt heavy and damp, and every breath was difficult to take. My girlfriend was saying over and over again, "What's on me? There's something on me. Get it off." Gross. But I was unable to do anything, and there wasn't anything I could see in the dim light. All I could do was say with as much conviction as possible, "Get off of me." And then suddenly I could move. I pulled her off the bed, and we huddled together in the dark. I am not a religious man, but I tried to put up as many mental barriers as possible against whatever was there with us. And I did a Qigong breath technique I had learned from studying martial arts that supposedly increases your energy level. I don't know if it made a difference, but after that frightening length of time, the room returned to normal. We both felt alone again. She tried to get back to sleep, but we both laid in bed awake until dawn.
Yeah, you go sleep in your car then.
So, yeah, oh my God, that is so scary. So, like, the very, very first time that I had sleep paralysis, it literally, like, freaked me out so much that I literally did the same thing. I just laid in bed until it was daylight. Like, I should have just got up and, like, gone and watched TV or something, but, like, I was just literally so freaked out that all I could do was just lay there. So, like, I definitely know that feeling. I found excuses to not... The thing that's creepy about that, too, is that it's not just like he had the sleep paralysis. It was like his girlfriend was experiencing something also at the same time. So it's like, I don't know. It's like hard to refute when you're both experience something at the same time. I don't know. I found excuses to not go back to practice for a few days, but eventually I would have to go back, even if it was just to get my shit and get the fuck out of there. I was already done with that place, but the next visit was the breaking point for all of us. Oh no. Upon entering the space, we found a pole lamp that we used was turned on. but it had been knocked over. All of our amplifiers had been moved, not with any sense of order, just pushed around, and none of them were on casters. So, like, I assume that everybody knows what an amp is, but they're pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And if they're not, and casters are like wheels, so it'd be very easy to just like push one if it was on wheels, but otherwise they're so heavy. So you don't just like casually, knock them over or whatever. So I don't like that. They were facing in odd directions, none in any position that they had previously been left in. The carpet we had put in the middle of the room had been bunched up and moved, bottles knocked over. The room was a mess, more so than it normally was, or than we had left it previously. We started picking things up, and we found what had to have been half a dozen shredded mice scattered. Ew. But the coup de grace was on the top of the guitar amps, placed perfectly, almost as if it was displayed in a museum, a dead, eviscerated white bird of some kind. Its body cavity was torn open and looked clean. There was no innards or blood to be found, no viscera staining its white feathers. It looked like someone had torn the chest/stomach open, ripped out the insides, and then left it proudly for us to see. This was in a building where we never ever saw or heard birds ever. Woof. Maybe it was a cat, maybe it wasn't, but to quote Prometheus, God doesn't build in straight lines and cats don't leave eviscerated birds on guitar amps after trashing and rearranging the room. We moved out the next day, the band broke up that spring, and the building now houses a tattoo parlor on the same floor we rented. I found out after the fact that the building was a factory for whip manufacturing in the 1800s, which I feel like invites bad vibes from the jump. Maybe it's time I stop in the tattoo shop and ask if they've had anything strange happening. Okay. I don't like it. There's like certain levels of stuff that happen where you're just kind of like, I don't know, whatever. Like if it was just like the amps pushed around, like, I don't know. Like, I don't think, like, it could have been a cat. Like, if there was, like, mice mutilating happening one time, I feel like maybe it could be a cat, even though I don't feel like that's, like, typical cat behavior to just, like, mutilate a bunch of mice, like, if they're stray cats and they're hunting and eating for food, right? But then how is a cat gonna, like, move amps, bunch up a carpet?
I have a theory as to what happened here. Okay. Mongolian deathworm.
Yeah,
in the
that's
practice
probably
space.
It. Yeah.
It has to have been.
He was confused because there was no sand, so he just was like thrashing around.
So he's probably saw Star Wars and got cold and needed to crawl inside something to sleep and crawled inside a bird husk.
The bird part is like really weird to me too, because like, I don't know. I am more inclined to think like if it wasn't something paranormal that was like, you can't, I don't know. Like even like so like a person who like does not believe in paranormal experiences at all is going to probably be like, oh, it's just a guy. Like somebody broke in, even though there was no evidence of that, and was just like messing with you guys. He was like maybe hiding in the building, and like that's why you were getting like the spooky feelings or whatever. But that doesn't feel like, combined with like the experience that he had when he went home, his friend saying he saw somebody like in the bathroom with him or whatever, like it just feels like a weird combination of things to think that it's just like a vagrant, you know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. I don't like it. I hate it. Yeah. Pretty bad.
I like it. Sounds like a fun time.
Sounds honestly demonic for me, and I hate it. I really hate it. I think thankfully, they, you guys got out when you did, because that sounds really scary and terrible. The part to me that really freaks me out is like the running in the corner of the room, like in the room that you're like in the room. And again, with the footsteps, like with that Tiffany experience, like you can't mistake a person's running or footsteps with like an animal. You know what I mean? So maybe there was also a cat, but I don't know. I think there was something freaky up in that attic.
Deathworm.
Frogman.
Well, maybe both.
So those were our spooky stories. I didn't like any of them. Like, I liked them. Thank you all for sharing. I didn't like anything that happened to anybody. The mutilated animals to me just feels like really a step too far. Like, I would not deal with that either. I meant to ask you this in the first half. Which cryptid, I'm going to assume I think I know the answer, but what would you say is your favorite cryptid?
I don't know. I mean, I would have said...
Ask Caitlin.
Caitlin, what's your
right
favorite
now.
cryptid?
Cryptid?
Yeah.
Probably Harry from Harry and the Hendersons.
So Bigfoot.
No, but like Harry.
Bigfoot.
Harry from Harry and the Hendersons is a cryptid. Bigfoot's a cryptid.
He's a what's his like race, genus?
Bigfoot.
Status. Cryptid.
Yeah, so you like Bigfoot.
Like, you're Nathan from I Hope You Suffer, and you are a human. He's Harry from Harry and the Hendersons, and he's a cryptid.
Makes you think I'm a human.
Well,
maybe I'm a Mongolian
sure
deathworm in disguise.
Is that a cryptid? Because I would pick that.
Okay, yeah.
It is.
So Mongolian deathworm.
No, black-eyed child. Is that a cryptid or just a creepy?
According to these fucking documentaries,
It's not a
I don't
cryptid.
know what they are.
Well, okay,
Let's get for real.
That's what I figure.
Yeah.
Okay, I literally expected one of you to say Jersey Devil. I think a black-eyed kid would count because we don't actually know what they are.
I'm going with Deathworm. Deathworm's my favorite now.
You just found out about
I know,
the Deathworm.
but it looked very cool in that footage.
It could eat you in a single gulp.
I feel like most of these monsters probably could.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, before discovering the Deathworm, probably Jersey Devil or Mothman, maybe.
Yeah, I expected Jersey Devil, honestly. God. I think that, again, okay, yeah, if we're gonna say not any of the top guys, because, like, I feel by default I have to pick Mothman. I think that I would pick the Wendigo.
Obviously, La Llorona. No, Zombie is my favorite cryptid.
Mine is Vampire. Wow, this episode was literally all my shit. So,
do you want to talk about stuff you watched this
Yeah,
week still?
yeah.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
I will. Okay, let's see. What did I watch even? So I obviously, we are recording this 2 days after Halloween. So I watched like my standard Halloween stuff also. In addition to that, I watched a Hulu documentary called Monster Inside, America's Most Extreme Haunted House. And it is a documentary about McCamey Manor, which is a quote-unquote extreme haunted house. But it's that one, people have probably heard of it because it was on the news for being like, you have to like sign a waiver, and it's like this crazy intense, like, he like blindfolds you and like takes you to his quote-unquote manor, and then he like puts you through like essentially torture. And like, I didn't really know what the documentary was going to be about, but it was kind of like an expose about this guy and about how he is like actually a piece of trash, and he is like, I don't know. It was a pretty good documentary as far as things go. They had people who were kind of like speaking up against him because he like essentially did torture people. You're supposed to have a safety word essentially that you use when you want to exit. He was the guy who was like, if you could stand going through his like manor, he would give you like 200 like $20,000, like some crazy amount, and he's like, no one can ever do it. And then like essentially there would be instances where people would say like, I'm out, like I want out. They would say whatever the word was, and like he wouldn't let them out and things like that. So like he is really gross and terrible. But it's really interesting because it goes through kind of like the psychological part about like why people love extreme horror stuff and things like that, and it was interesting. So I think it is worth a watch. Oh my god. Then I watched Stephen King's The Boogeyman.
Pass.
Stupid, really dumb, kind of boring. I will say I did like some of the stuff they did with the creature. Like the creature noises and like some of the stuff that the creature did was spooky, but overall boring and dumb.
I do like that apparently Rob Savage went from critical acclaim from Host to massively hated on racist movie Dashcam to now just like, I don't know, boring Stephen King movie. And I actually didn't even know he directed it until I went to like log it, and I was like, yeah, they didn't really promote it as what it is. I think after I don't know if this is a Blumhouse movie too or not, but like it seems like after Dashcam they're just hiding that he's making stuff when they're promoting things.
Yeah, that's probably and then I watched Cobweb.
What is that about? Because I've seen people like going crazy for that movie.
So I was so into this movie until the last half an hour.
Oh, is it Stephen King movie too then?
No. You know what though? I do feel like that's really typical of me though. I'll be like watching a movie and I'll be so into it until they do the reveal, and then I'm like, boo, stupid. Like essentially it's about this like boy, this like 8-year-old boy who is hearing things in his wall, and he's like kind of antisocial at school, and his parents are really fucking weird, and then you find out what happens essentially. And like I really liked the movie, like I said, up until the last half an hour, and they like reveal what's going on, and I ultimately liked the ending, but like I didn't like what the creature, for lack of a better term, ended up being, I guess is my problem. But I don't know, I think I ended up giving it 2.5 stars, and maybe I would have given it more, because I do think it's interesting. It's like way more worth the watch than like Boogeyman was. But then I rewatched the Fright Night remake, which I like. I don't know. I like Anton Yelchin a lot.
Is it the one with? Is David Tennant in that?
Yeah.
I don't think I
Imogen Poots.
ever saw it.
It's actually crazy because, okay, so it came out, what year did it come out? 2011. It's got Anton Yelchin, Colin Farrell, Toni Collette, David Tennant, Imogen Poots, the guy McLovin or whatever, Dave Franco, like just like so many people. And like the last half of the movie kind of like goes off the rails a little bit for me, but like overall as a remake and like as just a movie, like I like it. I think it's funny, and I don't know, I have really mixed feelings about Colin Farrell, but I liked it. I think it's kind of early 2000s goofy but kind of good. Then I watched The Frighteners for the first time.
I saw your score for that and I was so mad.
What a fucking weird movie. I did not get what I did. It just didn't connect with me. I did not know what was happening. Yeah, Jeffrey Combs, 2 stars, of course, being perfect and amazing. I just don't know. I don't know what to say about it.
A lot of people don't like it. I love that movie. I think it's the last like Peter Jackson movie I actually care about.
So like, I know because we were talking about Peter Jackson like kind of recently, and I feel like
one of the bonus things this last, I don't know, this year at some point.
Yeah, and like go off Peter Jackson. I think I just like I like the idea behind it, but but like there was something off about like the ghosts part of it that was like very weird to me. Like it seemed disjointed, like the ghosts were just like there and like not really, I don't know. There's just something was like very weird about it to me. I also had no idea what it was about. So like I feel like going in blind kind of like threw me off because wow.
I think my only issue with it is I think it's like slightly too long.
Well,
'Cause
absolutely,
it's
yeah.
almost 2 hours, but like I do really like that movie.
Yeah. I like the idea behind it. I think but I don't know. It was very wacky. Then I watched Dead Silence for the first time. Have you seen
I
that?
haven't. Or I may have and just like don't remember anything about it. It's the like the killer ventriloquist dummy thing or whatever.
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
have
I
to
saw maybe
say,
like the last 30 minutes of it or something at some point.
okay, this movie is so dumb. It's very dumb, but the ending was so fucking wacky that I was like, okay, I'm kind of here for it. Just very weird and bizarre. Um, I'm not going to spoil the ending for people who want to see it, but like the movie leading up to it was like pretty stupid. Um, Weird. You scream, you die. Yeah, okay. And then we watched The Nun 2. Woof.
No, thank you.
So before we moved to Florida, so this was like what 2 years ago now. Chris and I, you remember, like went through and watched all of the what are they calling it?
Are they the Conjuring movies or is it?
The Conjuring, yeah, the Conjuring universe. And I don't know why, because most of them are so dumb. And The Nun actually ended up being like my top rated one. I thought the first one was like surprisingly really good and like atmospheric. And this one is just so boring. Literally so boring. And also they're getting really wacky with their CGI because like I understand, like, I get it, okay, but like there was a scene where Valak the nun was like supposedly standing underneath this blanket, and the blanket was CGI. Then there was like this other scene where this girl was like falling off a scaffolding or something, and the rope holding the scaffolding on was like CGI, and I was like, you couldn't have a rope, you just like literally couldn't have a rope. You made a fake rope. That's so weird to me. But yeah, overall, very stupid. I don't feel like the story made a lot of sense,
I
if I'm honest.
do they release one of these like every year?
I don't think it's every year, but let's see. The thing that's like very strange about this too is that I might have some of my movies mixed up a little bit, so like forgive me on that, but the Conjuring, like these are all connected either with through, you know, the characters Ed and Lorraine Warren or whatever, but they're different storylines, so it's like Annabelle, the Conjuring movies, and the Conjuring movies have like different guys in it, and Valak, who is the nun, is like the demon that's like following Ed in the actual Conjuring movies. And then The Nun was like a prequel talking about sort of like the origin of where she came from. So then The Nun 2 technically is also a prequel.
Oh,
But then
okay, sorry not to interrupt, but like I think
yeah.
so. This is why I was asking because I just looked it up and it's like is 2013, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021, 2023 for like all of the Conjuring attached movies.
Okay.
And I think it's sort of what I think one of the problems Marvel is having now is like they're pushing these movies out so fast that they're not giving VFX and like stuff like the time to actually make this shit work or like look right, because it's like at the point we're at, especially like I always bring it up, like Jurassic Park looks incredible still,
Yeah.
and that was like 1994, And, like, that movie looks better than, like, a lot of the CGI in modern movies. And it's because studios are just like, we gotta get this franchise out. Like, they just pick a random release date instead of, like, when the movie's out. And they're just like, well, we have to have the movie done by this point. To the point where there's, like, some movies that, like, they're like, yeah, we were finishing up, like, effects work, like, 2 days before the movie came out. And, like, it's like I have a feeling that's probably what kind of like this is doing. That, you know, like you said, like with The Nun 2 is probably like the same thing where they're just like, I don't know, we got to get this done and it has to be in theaters by this point. So like, just get some VFX shit done so we can cram this into movie theaters before Halloween or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I just felt like I also didn't really understand why they had to make a second one if like, because then, okay, spoiler, for some reason, if you're into the Conjuring universe and you haven't seen this yet, the end of the movie, the like quote unquote after credit scene for this movie is somebody calling Ed and Lorraine Warren and he's like, what, you know, like whatever. So they're like connecting it to them finally, because they obviously haven't been in the first two, in The Nun and The Nun 2, because they're prequels. So I'm like, what is happening here?
I mean, yeah,
now
they're gonna start attaching all of it somehow.
Because the other thing that I'm confused about is like, maybe I'm misremembering, because like it's been a while, and honestly, like most of the movies I wiped from my memory as soon as I watched them. But I thought they ended up like battling her and she's gone now.
I've only seen the first Conjuring, so I have no idea.
Well, my advice is to keep that.
Oh,
no,
like,
yeah, don't watch any of them.
I have zero intentions of watching any of them unless like Caitlin forces me to. So
yeah, it was quite the ordeal. But you know, well, it's easier at this point to like watch one because we've already watched all the other ones. But I'm just like, I'm wondering like how far they're gonna perpetuate this.
Oh, they're gonna keep going as long as they're making money. They're gonna keep pumping these out.
Well, they're not getting money from me because I'm watching for free.
They're still making money in the theaters somehow.
Yeah, true. This one was just real bad. Anyway, I think that's it.
The only thing I watched that wasn't for Horror Gives Back was I had Caitlin watch Suspiria for the first time.
Oh, how was that?
They really liked it. I don't think they rated it on Letterboxd at all, so I don't know like how much, but I know they said they liked it.
The original. Yeah.
I'm
nice.
We'll probably get to the remake at some point, but I feel like the remake is going to be a hard sit for Caitlin's attention span because it's long and kind of slow as opposed to the original.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
We'll see. Eventually, we'll get there. Other than, we had 2 days that we kind of like. One day we were just like not home at all for their birthday, and then like on their actual birthday we had to wait for a maintenance man, and then went out and ran some errands before 0 trick-or-treaters came to our house. So
yeah, you know, and so this is like, we've lived in Florida for 2 years, but this is our first year in our house. And I wasn't really sure what to expect. And so, like, of course, I, like, decorated my house for Halloween because that's who I am as a person. But, like, nobody else in our neighborhood was really decorated. And I was like, it was like that in California, too. But, like, the neighborhood we lived in California was, like, very different. So that wasn't surprising to me. But I was just like, are we just, like, not? But then, so we took a trip to a wedding. And in Nova, like, Northern Virginia, and in my mom's neighborhood in North Carolina, there were so many decorations. And I'm like, well, what is going on? And I'm wondering if it's just that, like, this is just for, like, me, but, like, it's maybe because it's, like, unseasonably warm here. It was, like, 85 degrees on Halloween. People just, like, don't get in because people don't really decorate for Christmas down here either. And it's, like, very strange to me that, like, but the culture that I grew up in, was like, you go all out to decorate your house, and they still are doing that, like, you know, in Northern Virginia. So it was weird to me, but I was like, whatever, you know what, if people want to. And there's like lots of kids in our neighborhood, but there are no sidewalks, and so that I thought might be an issue. And then there was no one else decorated, so I was like, I'm just gonna turn on and I sat and like waited for trick-or-treaters for like 2 hours, and I had none until 7:30. There was a knock on my door, and there was like these 2 little girls, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're my first trick-or-treaters. And I gave them like so much candy, and they were like so excited. Like, pretty much. One was I think it was a Paw Patrol person, and then the other one was like a Monster High girl, and I was like, you guys are so cute. And then because it also gets dark here kind of late too, so I wasn't really sure like what time it started, and I was like, whatever, they're my only trick-or-treaters, that's fine. But I was like a little sad because like I, of course, like, you know, trick-or-treating is not the same as when we were kids, but I was like, yeah, I can't wait till I have a house and I'll like do all this stuff and have trick-or-treaters. And then there was none, and I was like kind of sad about it, but I was like, you know, like whatever, it is what it is. And then between 7:30 and like 8:15, I had maybe like 10 kids. And so I was like, you know what? I'll take it. And then I started seeing online, like Tiffany said, and you know, Tiffany goes all out. She's got blow ups. She gave out like regular size candy bar, like king size candy bars or whatever. She's like the whatever. She said she didn't really have a lot. Like, you guys didn't have any. And then I was seeing online other people posting that they didn't really have any. And I was like, damn. People ain't spooky no more.
There was like, I saw one mom and kid walk down our street, but like the street we're on is maybe 6-7 houses wide, and the entire other side of our street is like a plumbing a warehouse for like plumbing supplies, and then like a gas like company like that'll like come to your house and like fill up like if you have like gas running stoves or heating or whatever. And so half of our street isn't even houses, and so I was like, I don't know, I feel like we're not going to get a lot as it is, even if we got any, but we didn't get a single person.
Yeah,
because all of the rest of our area, like the neighborhood we're in, is like houses. So I was like, everyone's going to go there because you're getting like, there's just more houses than what's on ours.
Yeah, and like I think honestly the only reason we got any is because I like left the lights on, and I think it was people like driving, like I think it was all people that lived, because I live like next to, it's kind of same thing, I live like next to a big development, and then my street is kind of like a little, not a cul-de-sac but a loop, so it's like only so many houses, and like I said, none of them were decorated. So I think it was literally people who lived past me that were driving home in their cars, and they just like saw that I had the lights on, and they got out and which is like fine, like get your candy, you know, but I couldn't believe it.
Did you do a shout out? How did we get to this?
I have no idea. I didn't do a shout out.
I don't remember how we got into that.
Oh, because you were talking about like what you did for the Caitlin's birthday.
Oh yeah, that's
said.
right. Because I haven't watched a lot since the last episode we had recorded with Lori.
Yeah. My shout out is our friends. Well, we only know Dakota, obviously, but ContraZoom just put out an episode interviewing the like creator, writer, director for Skinamarink, and they also talk a lot about Canadian horror, obviously because they're Canadian. And I thought the episode was like really interesting. I don't know anything about the director previously, and we had just kind of like brought up Skinamarink a few times, so I was like, wow, that's such a coincidence and very cool. So it's an interesting episode, and I think that like obviously like horror and whatnot is like not really Dakota's thing, but I think he asks like a lot of like really smart questions, and so it was just like a really interesting interview because the director was talking about how like a big inspiration of his was Black Christmas, like the original one, which is like very different than Skinamarink. But as he was like talking and explaining some of the things, I was like, I can totally see that. And then he just kind of talks about like being a current director and dealing with like social media and stuff like that. So I think that I just thought it was like really interesting and very cool for them. So it was a good episode. So that will be my shout out.
I think I talked about anytime we brought up Skinamarink, the sort of like film Twitter reaction to it. And I can't imagine like being a director on Twitter with that movie, like when it came out or whatever, and like seeing any of the reactions, because like I'm fully like on board with, I think, like, share your opinions online about like the movies you watch, whether it's like a good or bad. Like I don't think you should, like, I'm not we've talked about it where I'm like, I don't think you should hide if you disliked something, but like there's a bunch of people that'll be like, this movie was pure garbage, and then like at, you know, Kyle Edward Ball or like whatever, like tag the person. I'm like, don't do that. Like,
yeah, that's essentially the sentiment that he was putting out there. Like he said, I know putting this out is going to be very polarizing. Like people are either going to love it or going to hate it, and it's fine to put your opinion out there, but don't at me. And then people like message him directly being like, I fucking hated that. Like, don't do that. I see that shit
on Instagram a lot, and I'm just fucking like posting your story that you didn't like it, and then like move on.
Yeah, like, yeah, I don't know. I just would never like attack unless they're, you know, there's different reasons for addressing people if they're being like problematic or whatever. But if they're just like putting their movie out there, like, you don't need to death threat them or like say anything to them directly.
That's the thing. It's like, I obviously fucking hate Blumhouse, but you know what I did? Anytime I tweet about it, I didn't tag Jason Blum or Blumhouse in it.
No, like... No. I've never approached him. I've never said a mean word to Eli Roth, even though I feel like he deserves it. Okay. Yeah, you don't need to do that. They don't need to know you. You know what I mean? I don't know. He does kind of talk about like film Twitter and like privilege of like whatever. So I just thought it was like an interesting conversation.
I have that in my queue. I'm in the middle of still just in the process of catching up on all of my podcasts. I'm still in like, I don't know, March of this year. And so I got like, I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a bunch of albums that came out in the last little bit that I've been catching up on. Speaking of Chris from earlier, his band Sour Times released an EP called Awaken the Voiceless that's really good. That you could probably listen to on Spotify, but go buy it on Bandcamp.
Wait, hold on. Let me pull up Spotify. What's it called?
Sour Times. The album is Awaken the Voiceless.
Sour Times. Oh, here it is.
The new Iron Roses album is pretty good. I recommend that.
Yeah, I love them. Awaken the Voiceless. Okay, it is on here. I have queued it up.
There's a new To Be Gentle, like 4-song EP called No One Is Home that's really good. And then on Halloween every year, Middleman Records releases a compilation called Grave Neighbors, and they're on volume 7 now, which is just a bunch of like screamo bands doing covers. And like every year I feel like at least one band covers either the Misfits or AFI, and this year was one of them, some band, Buried in Coal, covering Skulls by the Misfits. So that was pretty good. And then like Coma Regalia, which is like the band, the person that runs Middleman, that's their band. They teamed up with another band called It Only Ends Once, and they did a cover of Hunger Strike by Temple of the Dog, which I feel like you're probably not familiar with, but like Temple of the Dog was like a band made up of members of like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, and I think some other like Seattle bands, that was like a tribute to somebody that like had passed away from like one of those like Seattle bands. And so it was like Eddie Vedder and like Chris Cornell singing on it. So I don't know, it's like a fun like thing where it's like they got two bands to like, collab on it. That's pretty fun. And I think the last one is the band Bleach Everything released an EP on Halloween called All Alone in Dirt. That's really good. It's like 4 songs, like right around 4 minutes of music. It's very good. Yeah, so you can go listen to all of that. All that's on Bandcamp. I think I pretty much only use Spotify for podcasts at this point, and all of the John Zorn albums that made it on there.
Yeah. Let's see what my terrible playlist is. We're not advertising
Rainy
Spotify,
day,
really, but...
thunderstorm, Thursday evening. It's literally all like the white noise stuff I listen to for sleep.
I love that. Mine is Skater High School Evening. That seems pretty fair.
I listen to noise and binaural on Thursday evenings. Here's some thunderstorm and birds and rainforest soundscapes. Great. All right, next week, finally doing Treehouse of Horror.
We'll see.
Yeah, so that should be next week's episode. Season 6, 7, and 8, I think they were. Because it was like episodes 5, 6, and 7. Maybe 4, 5, and 6. I forget.
Something like that. Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. If you would like to support us, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/IPSufferPodcast. We will have a late episode on Halloween music sometime soon. And then we'll probably do like a comic book thing sometime soonish.
We definitely are, because I already picked
What are we doing?
Green Hornet.
Oh, that's right.
Movie.
I forgot. I listened to the episode recently, and the last thing I remembered us talking about was like at some point doing like the pilots and stuff, because we talked about like the Aquaman CW shit.
Yeah.
I was like, is that what we landed on? I should probably ask, but I forgot you said Green Hornet.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, I forgot about that, and I definitely absolutely want to watch that. But yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, patreon.com/IPSufferPodcast. Go sign up. Listen to, I don't know, there's well over 50 episodes of shit on there at this point.
I gotta say, I do feel like some of those Patreon episodes are some of our best. We are unleashed and wild. We're wilding out, as the kids used to say.
Yeah, there's an episode every week in October. So you can go listen to us talk about a real bad Christian horror movie and all the way up to Mars Attacks.
Yeah, really
the whole gamut.
The spectrum, yeah.
You could buy merch at our storefront here. You can leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify, all that shit. You can follow Kit at Hidden Kitstery and Kitchification of Blood. You can follow Katie at WerewolfFace and join Katie's Patreon at patreon.com/werewolfface. You can listen to my other podcast, 8K Movie Club. You can follow me on things at Gordon Scramsey, but just follow me on Letterboxd. Everything else is bad. All of his social media is bad. Blue Sky's real boring. I barely look at it, and I just, unless you want to see pictures of Lex, don't bother with my Instagram.
You post on your stories a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like not necessarily a lot. Maybe like once a week, I'll post like 8 things. Because I barely like switch over to look at it, and if I do, it's mostly just to see like if Carly Rae Jepsen's released something new.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I guess maybe I'm thinking of the I
do the I Hope You Suffer a lot. So. I try to stay on that, like, and post at least stuff in the stories daily. But I don't. My regular one, I'll switch over maybe once a day and look at it, and I'll make it through like I don't know, the first 4 posts, and I'm like, I don't care about any of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Treehouse of Horror next week. I am excited to talk about The Simpsons finally.
Yeah, right.
That will maybe be
yeah.
a long episode too.
Probably. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to talk about World's Scariest Monsters for as long as we did, but super extra thank you to everybody who wrote in a spooky story. I hated all of it in a good way, and
Yeah, just
thanks
hopefully you passed all of those things to Katie.
No, don't pass anything to me. I don't want it. I would just rather not, honestly. If I hear anything running in my house tonight, I literally will lose my mind. So I'm going to go cleanse my area and drink my winter spice cranberry Sprite.
I'm going to go to work. Yeah,
Boo.
not great. Not thrilled about that. That's my haunting. Stupid ass jobs.
The perpetual haunting of going
the perpetual
to work.
haunting of I had 2 days off and literally no one touched the entire department those 2 days I was off.
Definitely.
Got the fucking work last night and literally all of the eggs and milk were empty. Like I was
Perfect.
like, great. Entire truck
people don't
that
buy
came
those
in,
things. It's fine.
The day I was off is untouched, so I guess now I got to deal with that. Fucking, I hate jobs. I hate working.
Perfect.
Working's the fucking worst.
Everybody listening, all of our downloaders, please get on Patreon so that no one has to work anymore.
Give me enough money that I cannot work.
Help us.
Kit has to keep working.
Us.
Fuck him.
Kit's not even here, okay? Does he even go here anymore?
Yeah, he'll be here.
No. We'll be back soon, normally scheduled.
Yeah, between
hopefully
days off and work schedules, just this whole, like, all of the last month was like
terrible.
Fucking thrown together. But I think we did some good episodes.
Yeah, we made it. We did it. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're still listening at 2 hours and 43 minutes into this episode, we love you. You're the best.
I assume everybody tuned out as soon as we mentioned the death worm. They're like, nope, too scary. All right, Treehouse of Horror next week. I hope you encounter one of the world's sexiest monsters. But why?
Yeah, definitely.
I hope you fuck that Mothman.